Chapter 42-44. Nothing. Xiaohua looked again and again but didn't find anything strange. He could only ask Longmai Xiaohua in confusion. A mysterious expression appeared on Longmai Xiaohua's face as he said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist, take a closer look. Is the sky collapsing?" "Of course it's collapsing," Xiaohua answered without hesitation. "That day when I saw the collapse of Tongtian Peak, I already looked at this point." Xiaohua was suddenly stunned. Just as Longmai Xiaohua said, he looked at the sky again. After a while, his gaze landed on the pale sun again. "Damn it, I was wrong." Xiaohua looked at the sun and smiled bitterly. "I always thought that the space above the primitive continent had collapsed. But if the space had collapsed, then the sun, naturally can't be seen. It must have been blocked by the collapsed space. But now the sun can be seen clearly and there are no dark clouds. Presumably, it's not a real space collapse, but the activation of a kind of array. If one were to think deeper, perhaps there was an array formation above the entire primordial continent that even the Harkin and the heaven-devouring beast were unaware of. This array formation. I understand now. This array formation was built from the top of the Heaven Ascension Peak. Then, with Tongtian Peak as the center, it covered the entire primitive continent. Inside the array, all the water element energy of heaven and earth above the primitive continent was absorbed by this array. This caused the primitive continent to have no water element energy of heaven and earth. And inside the array, the water element energy of heaven and earth was cast into the innate heavy water. And when Tongtian Peak collapsed, this array was also activated. The innate heavy water that had been gathered for millions of years poured into the primitive continent, causing a tragedy of annihilation. But such a large array, such a large scale. Who created it? Xiaohua was really in disbelief. This idea was so big that it exceeded his imagination. He himself felt that it was unimaginable. Dragon God. Longmai Xiaohua answered without hesitation. Dragon God? Impossible? Xiaohua was dumbfounded. If Dragon God is still here, how can the heaven-swallowing beast not know? To tell you the truth, fellow Taoist, Dragon Vein, Xiaohua explained, I had long sensed a trace of the Dragon Clan's aura in the heavenly heavy water. After sending the last batch of Beasts and Fortune Gate's disciples to the Shunhua continent, I did not immediately meet up with fellow Taoist. Instead, I went to the sky to investigate. As a result, just as fellow Taoist saw, I discovered a flaw in the formation. When I tried to break the formation by force, I was injured by the formation. I didn't dare to act rashly, so I hurried to report it to fellow Taoist. Good joy appeared on Xiaohua's face as he shouted, We'll go investigate now. Perhaps we can find a way to break the formation. Unfortunately, Dragon Vein Xiaohua shook his head slightly and said, Fellow Taoist, I have come to report and also to warn you. This array is definitely not something we can break. I just touched the outer layer and was injured by the formation. I don't think fellow Taoist has the ability to break this formation. So it's like that. Although Dragon Vein Xiaohua's words were like cold water poured over Xiaohua's head, Xiaohua was not particularly surprised. If it was really the Dragon God's formation, it would be a joke if he could break it. Then what should we do? Xiaohua was a little helpless. Dragon Vein Xiaohua smiled and said, We can't do it, but there's still Ting and the heaven-devouring beast impossible. Xiaohua shook his head. If I'm not mistaken, that heaven-devouring beast is the Dragon God's spiritual beast. How could it help us break the Dragon God's formation? Fellow Taoist seems to have forgotten. Dragon Vein Xiaohua replied. The heaven-devouring beast was kept in the dark. It was also bait in the formation. That's right. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and nodded. Now that we know that the heaven-devouring beast is the Dragon God's spiritual beast and Ting is Nanwamethraya's spiritual beast, the two of them must have come here with the Dragon God and Nanwamethreya. Although they didn't mention their master, it's very obvious that Nanwamethreya has already reincarnated. Can the Dragon God still be alive? Even if he's alive, I'm afraid he doesn't have much magic power. Otherwise, he wouldn't have let Ting and the heaven-devouring beast fight for the Pango Axe and cause a conflict to push down Tongtian Peak. He can settle this matter with one axe. There's no need to make it so troublesome. And he doesn't dare to summon the heaven-devouring beast because he's afraid that the heaven-devouring beast has ulterior motives. Moreover, only the god of the dragon clan could create so much connate heavy water. Oh right, there's also that Pangu axe. It's the dragon god's weapon, and only the dragon god can place it on Tongtian Peak. But Dragon Vane Xiaohua spoke again. I kept thinking on the way back. The dragon chi in this connate heavy water is extremely weak. If not for the fact that I have the body of a dragon, I definitely wouldn't be able to detect it. However, when we arrived at the formation, the dragon chi there was slightly stronger. The heaven-devouring beast is the spiritual beast that follows the dragon god. How could it not detect it? If it knew that this formation was set up by the dragon god, even if it has resentment in its heart, it wouldn't dare to cooperate with us to break the formation, right? Xiaohua pinched his chin and nodded. That's right, you're right. The heaven-devouring beast definitely wouldn't dare to break the formation set up by the dragon god, even if the dragon god has already abandoned it. I have to think of a way. At this point, Xiaohua's eyes suddenly lit up, as if he thought of something. Then he transmitted a few words to Dragon Vane Xiaohua. Dragon Vane Xiaohua beamed with joy and nodded repeatedly. That's right, that's right. If that's the case, that heaven-devouring beast will definitely be fooled. Let's do as fellow Taoist says. Then Xiaohua and Dragon Vane Xiaohua discussed for a while. Only then did Dragon Vane Xiaohua enter Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua identified the direction, and flew in the direction of Di Ting, and the heaven-devouring beast. At this time, the Eldritch continent was filled with rain and flood. It was impossible to identify any direction. However, it was also in this place that Xiaohua was the best at identifying directions. He didn't spend much effort to find the two strange beasts lying in the air. The mountain where the two strange beasts were on had already disappeared. Xiaohua didn't dare to use his divine sense to check whether the teleportation formation in the capital star formation was intact. He stood respectfully in the air, bowed, and said, "Junior greets the two seniors." "Oh, what? You were filled with anger when you left. Why aren't you angry now?" The heaven-devouring beast still didn't forget to sow discord and asked with a smile. Xiaohua smiled and said, "Previously, Junior thought that the two seniors were cold-blooded. You had a lot of magical powers, but didn't want to take care of the billions of creatures in the Eldritch continent. Junior even suspected that the two seniors had done something, so Junior was angry. However, in the past few months, Junior tried his best but couldn't save many Eldritch beasts. While feeling dejected, Junior thought that the two seniors were injured. Even if you took action, I'm afraid you wouldn't be able to save many creatures. So Junior can understand the difficulties of the two seniors. And we don't have the Kunlun mirror, so it's naturally impossible for us to save creatures as easily as you. So we simply helped you guard to prevent the enemy who made the sky collapse from appearing." The heaven-devouring beast nodded and said, "Previously, we didn't want to say it. Since you already understand, this old man will also explain it to you." Indeed, when Xiaohua heard the heaven-devouring beast mention the enemy, he was overjoyed and said, "While Junior was saving creatures along the way, I also found something strange. I know that the two seniors are also victims and are definitely not the ones who set the trap. So now I'm specially apologizing to the two seniors with that." Xiaohua bowed again. After he finished bowing, Di Ting asked curiously, "What did you find? I haven't found anything special after looking for so long." "Soul," Xiaohua said seriously. "I don't know if Senior noticed the souls of those eldritch beasts after they were killed." "No." Di Ting was confused and shook his head slightly. "Ordinary souls should leave the body for a few breaths after leaving the body, and then they will be pulled into the 9 underworlds by the power of samsara," Xiaohua explained in all seriousness. However, this junior discovered that in this flood, the souls of all the primeval beasts that were killed never left their bodies. What does this mean? What does it mean? Di Ting and the heaven-devouring beast were both surprised and asked naturally. "It means that there are devils on the Eldritch continent. It's at least a devil venerable." Xiaohua's face tightened and said, "This devil venerable used this apocalyptic flood to collect souls. Impossible." Di Ting denied. "If there was a devil venerable, how could I not know?" "Senior, please look over there." Xiaohua pointed at the sun in the sky and asked, Senior, did you find anything unusual? Even Xiaohua couldn't see the abnormality for a moment, so Di Ting naturally couldn't see it, so Xiaohua told him the result of his discussion with Dragon Vein Xiaohua. Finally, looking at the heaven-devouring beast's uncertain expression and flickering eyes, he asserted, I hope Senior Heaven-Devouring can investigate clearly. It must be that devil venerable of the devil race who occupied the dragon god's divine bone and borrowed the dragon god's power to build Tongtian Peak on the Eldritch continent and set up the boundless dragon array. Shut up. Just as Dragon Vein Xiaohua said. Without waiting for Xiaohua to finish his conclusion, the heaven-devouring beast interrupted Xiaohua. How can there be such a devil race? How can they occupy the dragon bone of my dragon god? How is it impossible? Xiaohua said with deep emotion. Previously, Junior saw a devil emperor of the zombie race in a cultivation world called the Ruins. He could occupy a celestial zombie. A devil emperor is so powerful. Then a devil venerable should be able to occupy the dragon bone of the dragon god, right? Damn it, damn it, damn it. Hearing that the dragon god's dragon bone was desecrated, the heaven-devouring beast shouted in anger, but Di Ting still didn't believe it. He frowned and said, if there really is a devil venerable, it's possible. But the problem is, Senior has never heard of a devil race on the Eldritch continent. Chapter 42-45. This, Junior doesn't know. Junior came late and doesn't know much about the great desolate continent. Xiaohua shrugged. Of course, if the devil race's devil lord had already existed before the two seniors arrived, then the two seniors might not have noticed it. That's even more impossible. Di Ting shook his head even more. My Buddha lord at this point. Di Ting didn't say anything more, but Xiaohua also understood that even the demon venerable couldn't hide in front of Namo Mithriya Buddha. However, Xiaohua really didn't know what was above the demon venerable, so he didn't dare to say anything. He could only stammer. If that's the case, the missing soul. How do you explain it? Heaven-swallowing beast snorted. No need to say so much. Little guy, follow me to the array and you will know. Di Ting, are you going? Hearing this, Xiaohua was overjoyed. Junior naturally wants to go. Junior also wants to see the face of Dragon God. Oh, maybe I can also see the face of Namo Mithriya Buddha. When Xiaohua said this, Di Ting's heart thumped. How could he be at ease to let Xiaohua look for the corpse of Jiang Luer's previous life? Di Ting hurriedly replied. Of course I want to go. This demon venerable dared to scheme against me. I want to let him know my power. Immediately, the two strange beasts brought Xiaohua to the location of Tongtian Peak. At this time, the surroundings of Tongtian Peak were flooded. Except for the collapsed peak of Tongtian Peak, which had not been corroded by the innate heavy water. The other mountains and boulders were also slowly melting. If Junior's guess is right, Xiaohua pointed to the place where Tongtian Peak pierced the sky and said, this is the array core of the entire array. Dragon God's bone might be here, and is being controlled by the demon venerable. Damn it. Heaven-swallowing beast roared, and its figure flashed in the heavy water and disappeared into the sky. Senior Xiaohua pretended to raise his hand and shouted, why didn't you bring Junior along? Hee, of course I won't forget you. Next to him, Truth Listener smiled sinisterly. Xiaohua's body became light, and the water in front of his eyes became colorful. When all the phenomena disappeared, Xiaohua opened his eyes and saw that he was standing under a collapsed space with Truth Listener. At this moment, the heaven-swallowing beast stood above his head in an extremely irritable manner. Its entire body expanded and shrunk uncontrollably. Its pitch-black demonic aura mixed with dragon tattoos enveloped an area of nearly 100 miles. Xiaohua squinted his eyes and released his divine sense. Hundreds of miles above his head, thousands of miles around him was filled with chaos. Within this chaos, there was a blue water light. The innate heavy water was pouring down from this water light. It was endless and didn't look like it was going to stop at all. Between the water light, there was a void fluctuation wantonly. It was no different from an ordinary void being torn apart. In these fluctuations, there was even an extremely large amount of heaven and earth yuan qi gushing out. Looking 1,000 miles away, there were pieces of space fragments and cracks in space. They were like broken terraces on a mountain peak. It looked like there were segments, but in reality there was no pattern. Among these fragments, there was also a huge amount of innate heavy water pouring down. As the innate heavy water poured down, the originally connected space fragments shattered one after another and fell into the void. First, the heaven and earth yuan qi and disorderly fluctuations gushed out from the broken fragments, followed by another wave of innate heavy water. Damn it, isn't this the collapse of the void? Xiao Hua, who already had a good understanding of the void, looked at everything in front of him in disbelief. He then looked into the distance again. The scorching sun had already set in the west, and the faint rays of sunlight reflected 7 colors in the water light. If it wasn't for this sun, I would have been deceived by this great array. That's right. The heaven-devouring beast's voice transmitted word by word. There's clearly the aura of the dragon god here, and this aura is somewhat sluggish. There's no vitality. It must be the demon lord of the demon race who has taken over my dragon god's dragon bones. How hateful. But Di Ting first flew 100 miles away from the center for a while, then flew a few thousand miles away. At this time he flew back and transmitted his voice. I didn't smell a trace of the demon race's aura. How could Xiao Hua let the heaven-devouring beast doubt him again? He hurriedly covered up. The zombie race is the best at hiding their aura. How could it be so easily discovered? Moreover, the dragon god's aura is incomparably strong. I'm afraid it has already concealed the aura of the demon race. That's right. The heaven-devouring beast nodded resolutely. He looked at Di Ting and said, the little guy is right. The dragon god's dragon bones must have been desecrated by the demon race. Di Ting, in order to not shame the dragon god's dragon bones, I'll put aside my grudges with you first. I'll break this demonic array first, and after I rescue the dragon god's dragon bones, I'll settle the score with you. How about that? Di Ting hesitated for a moment, then said, the dragon god is also a dragon that I respect. How about this? I'll break the array with you. Perhaps there'll be the remains of my Buddha Lord inside. Good. Before Di Ting could finish, the heaven-devouring beast shouted happily, let's do it together. Damn it, just thinking about being able to see the dragon god's dragon bones before I die, my heart is also beating fast. AI, what a pity. If only the Pango axe was here again, it would save us a lot of trouble. Di Ting sighed and glanced at Xiao Hua. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua was not moved at all. His face was as heavy as water, even heavier than the surrounding Xiantian heavy water. Do it! The heaven-devouring beast was a little anxious, but it didn't say anything. It transmitted its voice and immediately opened its mouth. Layers of ripples appeared in its black mouth, and the space in front of the heaven-devouring beast began to boil. This boiling was like a huge horn that spread to the sky. Wherever the boiling passed, everything disappeared, including the Xiantian heavy water and the shattered void. It was as if everything had been swallowed into the heaven-devouring beast's stomach. I'll help you. Seeing the heaven-devouring beast take action, Di Ting roared, and the dim Buddhist light around its body shone brightly. The horn on its head emitted a 9-colored light, and the light coordinated with the heaven-devouring beast's fluctuations. It also rushed to the place thousands of miles high in the sky with the same power as the fluctuations. Wherever the light touched, everything was shattered, turning into wisps of Buddhist clouds. The fragments and cracks in the void were also shattered by the sound of the wooden fish, and no more Xiantian heavy water fell. I'm afraid it won't work. Xiao Hua stood not far away, watching the two beasts do their best to break the array. He could not help but shake his head. These two beasts are already at the point of exhaustion. This joint attack is much weaker than the previous battle at the sky-connecting peak. Although the two beasts were exhausted, the power of their attacks was extremely powerful. When the heaven-devouring beast's fluctuations landed on the 1,000-mile array, thousands of dragon patterns suddenly appeared, covering half of the array. The entire array was extremely distorted, and thousands of chaotic fluctuations leaked out. When Di Ting's light landed on the other half of the array, thousands of Buddhist Dharma protectors were also born. These Buddhist Dharma protectors carried enormous strength, and each of them used the power of dragons and elephants, which also messed up the light and shadows of the array. A strange sound rang out, and the space thousands of miles was pulled down thousands of feet by the two beasts. The moment the array was torn apart, several strands of golden light leaked out. As expected, seeing the light, Xiaohua finally calmed down. This must be the sunlight above the array. Fellow Taoist Longmai's guess was right. There's a normal sky above the array. Kacha, at the same time the light leaked out, a huge dragon-shaped thunderbolt fell out of the sky. This thunderbolt was golden in color, and it was filled with a terrifying dragon's breath. As soon as it fell, it immediately enveloped thousands of miles. In the face of this dragon's breath, the heaven-devouring beast was dumbfounded. He almost cried out, "Supreme Dragon God! You!" In the face of the Supreme Dragon God's remaining power, the heaven-devouring beast naturally did not dare to resist, but Di Ting did not dare to do so. Di Ting's figure flashed, and he swept the heaven-devouring beast away and flew away, still transmitting a voice transmission. "Hurry up and leave!" Although the two beasts saw the opportunity early, and their strength was also extraordinary, this space of thousands of miles had already been sealed. How could they escape unscathed? Swoosh! The thunderbolt swept down, and the two beasts' bodies trembled. The heaven-devouring beast's demonic aura was completely destroyed, and the Buddhist light around Di Ting's body was also withdrawn. Even the wails of the two beasts were left in the air. However, even so, the two beasts still managed to escape from the space sealed by the dragon's breath before the thunderbolt fell. Damn it! Seeing the two beasts disappear in an instant, Xiaohua angrily cursed, and his figure hurriedly teleported. However, his strength was too weak compared to the two beasts, and under the terrifying dragon's breath, how could he teleport? Seeing the dragon-shaped thunderbolt fall, Xiaohua trembled with fear, and he hurriedly activated the lightning escape technique. Crack! The thunderbolt fell, and it hit Xiaohua. Xiaohua originally could not break through the seal of the thunderbolt, but when the thunderbolt fell, Xiaohua borrowed the power of the thunderbolt to fly out of the seal. However, after flying for a few miles, Xiaohua's body fell down like a stone. It was unknown how long he fell. Poof! Xiaohua's body crashed into the broken peak of Heaven Connecting Peak, and the mountain rocks that had been corroded by the innate heavy water smashed a huge deep hole. Xiaohua's body was embedded in the deep hole. At this time, the magic array that was pulled by the two beasts had already returned to its original state, and an endless amount of innate heavy water fell from within. What was different from before was that within the 1,000 miles of the magic array, the huge eye from before faintly appeared again. It looked at Xiaohua's body that was embedded in the mountain rocks with extreme coldness, and then slowly disappeared. However, what the huge eye did not know was that when the huge eye disappeared, the slightly opened illusion breaker eye between Xiaohua's brows flashed with a trace of green light, and then it tightly closed again. Chapter 42-46. Dozens of days later, two strands of Yuan Shen swept across the sky from afar. Although these strands of Yuan Shen were powerful, they were sneaky like thieves sneaking into someone else's house. When the strands of Yuan Shen landed on the mountain peak where Xiaohua was located, they saw the innate heavy water accumulated in the deep hole and immediately stopped. They circled around a few times before quietly withdrawing. After about the time it took to eat a meal, Di Ting and the heaven-swallowing beast lowered their bodies and slowly flew along the surface of the flood. Every time they flew a certain distance, they would raise their heads to look at the sky. They didn't dare to release their Yuan Shen, let alone use other divine abilities. The two beasts flew close to the broken peak, but they didn't rescue Xiaohua from the deep hole first. Instead, they raised their heads in fear, as if they were afraid of waking up the dragon god in the sky. Huff! Just as they raised their heads, a stream of heavy water suddenly emerged from the human-shaped deep hole, and Xiaohua's figure flew out from it. Wu! The two beasts were like birds startled by the twang of a bow and hurriedly flew away. When they discovered the truth, they couldn't help but feel ashamed and angry. "Little thing, what are you doing?" Senior Xiaohua's tone was a little straight, and there was no emotion in his tone. His opened eyes were faintly glowing with green light. "This junior has just woken up. If there is any disturbance, please forgive me." Hihi! The heaven-swallowing beast smacked its lips. "You really are an unkillable cockroach. Even the dragon god's wrath couldn't destroy you. Your human fleshly body is really not bad. It's a pity that our Yuan Shen is too powerful." Di Ting also felt a little regretful. Moreover, it's not compatible with the human body. Otherwise, we would also covet your body. Seniors? What do you mean? Xiaohua was quite puzzled and asked curiously. Di Ting and the heaven-swallowing beast looked at each other, somewhat surprised by Xiaohua's dullness. However, Di Ting immediately said, "We are just saying that we have no ill intentions. Moreover, we have been thinking about the dragon god's wrath. Our opinions are somewhat different, so we want to hear your opinion." I see. Xiaohua pondered for a moment before raising his head to look at the sky. He cautiously said, "It's not convenient to talk about this matter here. How about this? This junior has yet to recover from his serious injuries. Seniors, please wait for another 10 days. Once this junior has recovered from his injuries, we will discuss this matter again. How about that?" "Oh, will your injuries recover in less than 10 days? Truth Listener and the heaven-devouring beast asked in alarm. Xiaohua nodded. "Junior is a human. I have specially refined medicinal pills, and also have a healing cultivation technique. Although I won't be able to fully recover in a dozen or so days, I can still move freely." Speaking up to here, Xiaohua thought of something and hurriedly asked, "Seniors, do you need medicinal pills? This junior doesn't know if the pills of the human race can be used by the two seniors." "Why don't you show it to me?" the Harkin asked curiously. Xiaohua took out a spatial ring, and took out some medicinal pills refined by the incense cult, and handed them to the Harkin. The Harkin took them and looked at them for a moment before shaking his head. "These medicinal pills are too weak. Moreover, they are targeted at the human race. I'm afraid they won't be of much use to us." Yu the heaven-devouring beast raised its head, and a suction force that even the Harkin found difficult to resist appeared. It forcibly sucked the pills into its residence, and it muttered, "Who cares? It's better than nothing, yes yes." Xiaohua said as he took out some more pills from his spatial ring, and handed them to the heaven-devouring beast. "This junior doesn't have many medicinal pills. Please enjoy these." The heaven-devouring beast opened its mouth and sucked in the pills again. However, a moment later, a strange expression appeared on its face. The Harkin looked at the heaven-devouring beast meaningfully and asked with a smile, "How is it?" "Bullshit." The heaven-devouring beast spat out a mouthful of pills and cursed. "After eating so much, it's still not enough to fill the gaps between my teeth." "Like I said." The Harkin laughed. "These are medicinal pills of the human race. It's not something that can be consumed by us." Xiaohua smiled and said, "This junior wants to recuperate here first." "Recuperate here? You don't want to live anymore?" The heaven-devouring beast looked up with some fear. "Right under the nose of venerable dragon god?" "My human race has a saying, the safest place is also the most dangerous place." Xiaohua replied. "Bullshit." The Harkin also cursed. "That saying is, the most dangerous place is also the safest place." Yes, this junior hasn't read many books, and can't compare to the profound knowledge of the two seniors, Xiaohua said as he sat down cross-legged and swallowed one of the medicinal pills that he gave to the heaven-devouring beast. He began to circulate his cultivation method, and began to heal his wounds. The wisps of 5 elements origin energy fell into Xiaohua's body, and then overflowed from his forehead, turning into a faint 5-colored cloud. "Damn it, the human race is the human race." The heaven-devouring beast enviously looked at Xiaohua as he healed his wounds. "This brain of his really isn't for nothing. Even his healing method is extraordinary." "Let's go." The Harkin understood Xiaohua's meaning and said with a smile, "His cultivation method being extraordinary is secondary, the key is his brain. This little guy has already ordered us to leave. Let's wait until he recovers." The heaven-devouring beast looked at Xiaohua as he healed his wounds. He basically didn't take the Harkin and the Harkin seriously. Although it was a bit angry, it also knew that it needed his help and couldn't do anything to Xiaohua. Therefore, it coldly snorted and turned around to follow the Harkin and flew away. After the two beasts left, Xiaohua took out his spatial ring. But when he took out a pill from his spatial ring, Xiaohua's hand moved and the pill refined by Xiaoguo appeared in his hand. After Xiaohua swallowed the pill, he said to himself, "It seems my humanity has grown a lot." At this time, the one occupying Xiaohua's body was naturally the soul cultivator Xiaohua. The wrath of the dragon god from the mouth of the heaven-devouring beast wasn't a small spell. All the soul cultivators in Xiaohua's body were knocked unconscious. Only the soul cultivator Xiaohua, who had been hiding in the spatial ring, managed to escape. At this time, he was controlling Xiaohua's body and successfully deceived the Harkin and the heaven-devouring beast. After another 10 days, Xiaohua opened his eyes. After the starlight slowly passed, his eyes were filled with benevolence. An indescribable divine light flashed from his pupils, and then they returned to normal. Not bad. Xiaohua, who had regained his consciousness, looked around. He already knew that the soul cultivator Xiaohua had used a Taoist cultivation method and a Confucian cultivation method to heal his wounds. In these 10 days, most of his injuries had healed. He couldn't help but praise. Fellow Taoist is indeed worthy of being a shaman who controlled the ninth sky of spirit origin. I admire you. The soul cultivator Xiaohua smiled proudly and said, I don't dare. As the saying goes, if you learn one method, you can learn 10,000 methods. When you cultivate to the end, there are signs of 10,000 methods returning to the same origin. Moreover, fellow Taoist used the lightning escape technique to avoid the wrath of the dragon god, which has the effect of borrowing force to fight force. The injuries you suffered may seem serious, but in fact, they are nothing. Oh, also, fellow Taoist, when you were unconscious, I noticed a huge eye above the formation in the sky. Oh, an eye? Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. His eyes turned sharply as he asked curiously, could it be that the spying Lu Yi detected earlier was not Di Ting? Was there really a dragon god spying on us? It wasn't just the dragon god spying on us, of course Di Ting was spying on us too. Xiaohua replied. Di Ting is very familiar with our actions. If he didn't spy on us, I would be the first to not believe it. However, didn't Lu Yi say it clearly at that time? The spying he sensed was a kind of extermination. It was a kind of crisis. This spying was definitely done by the dragon god. Looking at this world-ending crisis, if the Fortune Gate's disciples weren't on Shenhua continent, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to survive. And Xiaohua closed his eyes again. After pondering for a moment, he said, it seems like we've been monitored since the moment we entered the desolate continent. Moreover, the heavenly heavy water might not necessarily take Lu Yi's and the others' lives. If Lu Yi's feeling is right, the dragon god must have other powerful means. This formation, we must break it. Of course we must break it. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Grandmaster Bodhi's water bottle is already filled with heavenly heavy water. Even an ocean on Shenhua continent is now filled with heavenly heavy water. However, this is only a temporary solution. If we don't break the formation, the desolate continent will face the end of the world. Moreover, if we don't take advantage of the fact that the dragon god can't escape from the formation and kill him as soon as possible, how will we survive when he can move? Let's go. Xiaohua no longer dared to hesitate. He leaped up and said, we need to find Di Ting and the heaven-devouring beast. If we want to break the formation, we need to rely on their abilities. There was no need for Xiaohua to spend too much effort searching for them. Xiaohua had only flown for half a day when Di Ting's origin sense swept over. Soon after, Di Ting rushed over with the heaven-devouring beast. Behind Di Ting, the heaven-devouring beast stood respectfully. Looking at the heaven-devouring beast's sleepy face, Xiaohua understood that this lazy beast wanted to rely on Di Ting to escape this calamity. Little guy, have your injuries healed? Di Ting looked at Xiaohua from head to toe and asked curiously. Xiaohua was still a little guy in his mouth. He had never asked for Xiaohua's name, as if he looked down on Xiaohua. Perhaps it was just like what Di Ting said, demonic beasts didn't need a name. Many thanks for Senior's concern. Xiaohua bowed and said, Junior's injuries have not healed, but since Senior has summoned me, Junior does not dare to keep Senior waiting. Little guy, the heaven-devouring beast hurriedly said, you're right about the formation in the sky. This old man has already seen it. However, the wrath of the dragon god in the formation is indeed the real deal. There is no demonic aura at all. How could my dragon god be desecrated by the demon lord? What do you think, Senior? Xiaohua didn't answer. Instead, he turned to look at Di Ting. To be honest, Di Ting didn't hide it and replied, this old man also didn't hear any demonic aura from the formation. However, this old man keeps feeling that something is wrong. Chapter 42-47. Hearing this, the corner of Xiaohua's mouth curled up. Without waiting for Diting to finish, he continued. Senior, do you think that the dragon god in the formation is too unreasonable? He shouldn't have killed the heaven-swallowing beast? Do you think that with the dragon god's identity, he wouldn't attack the two seniors? Do you think that venerable dragon god won't kill them? That's right, that's right. Xiaohua's that's right immediately hit Diting's heart. Diting nodded repeatedly. That's right, that's right. The heaven-devouring beast has been following Supreme Dragon God for who knows how many years. He's loyal and devoted. Even after Supreme Dragon God disappeared, he's still guarding Supreme Dragon God, and fighting with me for the sake of his faith in the Eldritch Continent. Sigh. That's right. Hearing this, the heaven-swallowing beast's face was also extremely lonely. He sighed. When I saw the Dragon God's wrath descend, I really didn't want to live anymore. How could the Dragon God treat me like this? That's why. Xiaohua struck while the iron was hot. The Dragon God in the formation is definitely not the Dragon God, but a puppet whose dragon bones are occupied by the Demon Lord. However, the Demon Lord's concealment technique is too powerful. He could actually deceive the two seniors. Perhaps, this is the only explanation that can make me feel at ease. The heaven-swallowing beast was obviously moved by Xiaohua's words. He looked at the distant sky and said faintly, Senior, if the dragon god's dragon bones or dragon body were desecrated by the demon lord, what would you do? Xiaohua's eyes narrowed like crescent moons as he asked softly. Nonsense. Of course, I'll kill the demon lord. I definitely won't allow anything to desecrate the dragon god. The heaven-swallowing beast said fiercely. He even looked at Xiaohua with a fierce gaze. Xiaohua didn't care about the heaven-swallowing beast's threat. He turned to Diting and asked, Senior, what do you think we should do? Diting was a little hesitant and replied, Of course we should break the formation. Kill the demon lord and rescue the dragon god's dragon bones from the formation. It's just that, this formation is too powerful. We have no way of breaking it. Xiaohua smiled and pointed at the distant sky. The center of the formation is naturally the formation eye. The defense there is naturally the strongest. What about the edge of the array? This junior doesn't believe that the great formation that covers the entire primeval wasteland continent is perfectly round and flawless. If the Demon Lord really used Lord Dragon God's divine ability to lay out a formation that covers the entire Eldritch continent, I'm afraid there really isn't any flaw in it. The heaven-swallowing beast looked at Xiaohua with disdain and said, This daddy once saw venerable dragon god set up a dragon array that covered the entire star field. Boom. The heaven-swallowing beast's words made Xiaohua dizzy all of a sudden. Only now did Xiaohua realize how shallow he was. The so-called Supreme Dragon God is the god of the dragon race. Even when his spirit beast was heavily injured and on the verge of death, he couldn't resist it. How could his divine ability be measured by him? For a dragon god who could set up a dragon formation that could control an entire space zone, even if he couldn't move and didn't have much power left, the great formation he set up could definitely cover the entire primeval continent. It was definitely not something that he and two dying beasts could break, right? The heaven-devouring beast's words continued to enter Xiaohua's mind. However, Xiaohua did not hear a single word. Now he seemed to have fallen into another deadlock. Could it be that the distortion in the starry sky is the key to breaking the great formation? Xiaohua was absent-minded. His eyes rolled around as he thought to himself, Only at that time will this Xiao have a chance to escape? Of course, this daddy is very familiar with the dragon formation set up by venerable dragon god. The heaven-devouring beast's words entered Xiaohua's mind intermittently. Venerable Dragon God often tells this daddy that breaking a formation requires a finishing touch, to find the key to the formation, to understand the thoughts of the person who set up the formation. Alas! Xiaohua sighed. He sneered and cursed in his heart. These words are for beasts. Our human race cultivators already knew this, when we first started learning about formations. If this daddy knew the weakness of this dragon formation, would this daddy still need to waste time with you? Xiaohua did not listen to the heaven-devouring beast show-off. He raised his head to look at the blue and gray sky and thought, This dragon formation covers the entire primeval continent. Even if we reach the edge of the Great Formation, it's impossible to get out. It's really difficult to break the formation from the inside. But what about outside the Great Formation? Could it be possible? But how can this daddy get out of the Great Formation? Since this daddy got out of the Great Formation, this Great Formation, is it not already broken? Damn it, this is a dead knot. Back then, this dragon god spent a lot of effort to set up the formation. He actually used hundreds of millions of stone giants. Damn it, hundreds of millions of stone giants to build such a Tongtian peak. That's why he could reach the peak of Tongtian Peak and start setting up the formation. This damn dragon god. At that time he couldn't even fly. How could he dare to look for the heaven-devouring beast? If the heaven-devouring beast was not obedient and directly swallowed the dragon god, he wouldn't even have a place to cry out. It's probably because of the suspicion at that time that made the dragon god attack the heaven-devouring beast today. Thinking of this, Xiaohua's heart suddenly flashed with a faintly discernible thought. However, this thought flashed by like a fish. Io. Xiaohua's heart moved. He hurriedly turned his head and looked around again. He almost lost his voice. Junior seems to have some feeling. What feeling? The heaven-devouring beast's words were interrupted by Xiaohua. It was somewhat unhappy and asked coldly. Could it be the feeling of breaking the formation? Humph. With the strength of your human race, you actually want to break the dragon formation? Don't you think it's a little wishful thinking? Xiaohua's words were indeed somewhat arrogant. Not only did Di Ting look at him in disbelief, even the sleepy heaven-devouring beast also became alert and looked at Xiaohua. That's right. Xiaohua nodded with certainty. Junior thought of an idea related to breaking the formation. What idea? Di Ting and the heaven-devouring beast also became alert as they stared at Xiaohua and asked. Xiaohua shrugged and said with a smile. Unfortunately, this idea flashed by. Junior hasn't grasped this idea yet. Damn it. The heaven-devouring beast was somewhat flustered and exasperated. That kind of nostalgic memory was cut off, and he got such an answer. How could he not be furious? Di Ting smiled and said, don't worry, slowly think, we have plenty of time. Speaking until here, Di Ting didn't forget to remind. The ones who don't have time are the creatures of the ancient continent. Now that the flood has covered the continent for a long time, it probably won't be long before the entire ground can't bear the weight of the innate heavy water. That's right. Xiaohua's heart trembled. He didn't think of this, so he frowned and stared at the sky, thinking hard. What exactly is it? What did I think of just now? Great formation? Should it be broken from the outside? But how can I get out of here? Dragon God spent billions of stone giants to build Tongtian Peak? This Tongtian Peak is the eye of the Great Formation? Can only break the formation from Tongtian Peak? But how can I get out from the eye of the formation on Tongtian Peak? Tongtian Peak, Tongtian Peak. Damn it. I'm afraid this is the only mountain in the ancient continent that can reach the sky, right? Xiaohua's thoughts were somewhat random. His gaze fell on the distant sky. He couldn't see clearly where Tongtian Peak pierced into the sky. It seems that the hidden immortal continent also doesn't have such a mountain. Io, that's right, Xiaoyu continent's main country's Taiqing sect doesn't have 3 mountain peaks, heaven, earth, and human? These 3 mountain peaks are also known as Tongtian Peak. Yes. Thinking of heaven, earth, and human, Xiaohua immediately thought of Hanzhu, the Kunlun sect's disciple who almost killed him in the Buddhist sect's ruins. Before Xiaohua went to the Buddhist sect's ruins, he saw Hanzhu outside the Incloud Black Forest. At that time, Hanzhu was participating in a Kunlun sect's grand meeting, and he just happened to win one of the competitions. And this competition was to climb the heaven, earth, and human, the 3 mountain peaks that could reach the sky. Whoever could climb the highest would win. And because Hanzhu had Buddhist sect's cultivation method, he actually climbed to the peak of the mountain. But when he reached the peak, Hanzhu discovered that he wasn't in the sky, but emerged from the underground of the Incloud Black Forest. At that time, Hanzhu proudly told Xiaohua about this. Xiaohua was also quite puzzled at that time. He even thought that Hanzhu was joking. As for later, Hanzhu suddenly attacked and almost killed Xiaohua. Xiaohua threw this matter to the back of his mind. Now that he saw Tongtian Peak's vastness and Tongtian Peak, Xiaohua very naturally thought of this matter. He thought of heaven, earth, and human. Aren't heaven, earth, and human very similar to Tongtian Peak? Needless to say, Xiaohua's heart suddenly became lively. He thought to himself, although I don't know if Xiaoyu continent is like this great desolate continent, there is a huge formation enveloping it, but if Tongtian Peak is like heaven, earth, and human, then this Tongtian Peak is not the real Tongtian Peak. Instead, there is a formation that gives rise to an illusion of Tongtian Peak. The end of Tongtian Peak is the beginning of Tongtian Peak. In other words, the peak of Tongtian Peak is actually at the bottom of Tongtian Peak. That supreme dragon god who can't fly also doesn't need to climb to the top of Tongtian Peak. As long as Tongtian Peak is built, he will be at the top of Tongtian Peak. The more Xiaohua thought about it, the more reasonable it was, his face unconsciously glowing. Daoist, the nearby heaven-devouring beast, looked amused and laughed. Did you think of something delicious? What delicious? Xiaohua glared at the heaven-devouring beast and said, I thought of a trick to break the formation. Impossible? The heaven-devouring beast cried out in disbelief. You actually thought of a trick? Speak quickly. Di-Ting hit the nail on the head. How should we break the formation? It's at the bottom of Tongtian Peak. Xiaohua said with confidence. That's the top of Tongtian Peak. How is that possible? Are you dreaming? Di-Ting sneered. That Tongtian Peak was already pushed down by me. Why didn't the top of the peak appear? Chapter 42-48. As the saying goes, the most dangerous place is the safest place. Xiaohua said with a smile. The Tongtian Peak has been toppled by Senior, but the mountain at the bottom is still there. Who would have thought that the broken mountain is the foundation of breaking the array? One is in the sky, the other is underground. The human race has too many unimaginable ideas. The heaven-swallowing beast disagreed and looked at Xiaohua coldly. I don't think this is a good idea. Seniors, why don't you go and take a look? Xiaohua said with a smile. If Senior wants the dignity of the dragon god to be trampled under the feet of the demon race, you should go and take a look. But when the heaven-swallowing beast heard that the dragon bones of the dragon god might be under their feet, he couldn't help but shrink back. We are about to die anyway, Di-Ting said faintly. No matter what, you have to make things clear, right? Is the dignity of your Lord Dragon God not worth your life? See, there was no need for Di-Ting to say a second sentence. Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air in his heart. He had heard a kind of determination from Di-Ting's mouth, and also heard a kind of threat to himself. The heaven-swallowing beast nodded and replied, Di-Ting, you are right. Even if the person in this array is really the dragon god, I still have to go and see him. See him for the last time. Let's go. Di-Ting took the lead and flew in the direction of the Tongtian Peak. Behind him, the heaven-swallowing beast, Xiaohua, and the heaven-swallowing beast followed. When they reached the Tongtian Peak, Di-Ting's ears trembled slightly. His figure flew slowly for nearly 1,000 miles and finally landed on the broken peak of the Tongtian Peak. He said faintly to Xiaohua, Little guy, the array core you mentioned doesn't seem to be here. How is that possible? Xiaohua was a little confused. He almost shouted out without thinking. Di-Ting smiled coldly and said, Can you not believe what I say? If you don't believe me, you can take a look yourself. I have searched the 6 realms and still have this little bit of divine ability. Of course, Xiaohua didn't dare to say that he didn't believe it. However, he was still unwilling to give up and rushed into the ground of the Tongtian Peak to take a look. The base of the heaven-connecting peak was a foundation that was several thousand li in size. This foundation was covered in a dark purple color, and there were also faint fluctuations coming from the foundation. However, under Xiaohua's divine sense, he couldn't see any signs of other great arrays. Even when Xiaohua fled to the very bottom of the mountain, he still didn't see the promised array formation. Most importantly, the water element yuan qi of heaven and earth was still lacking, and there were no signs of overflowing connate heavy water. The surface of Tongtian Peak, and even the bottom of the ground were covered in a strange purplish color. Although it was already broken, it was unknown what material it was made of. Xiaohua was unable to escape. Xiaohua once again flew out from the ground, and entered the Tongtian Peak using earth escape from the place where he was cut off by Panga's axe. Finally, he arrived at the bottom of Tongtian Peak. The entire heaven-connecting peak was like a huge cylindrical space. There were strange restrictive spells on the outside, and the inside was simply refined materials. How strange! Xiaohua looked to his left and saw that there really weren't any signs of a spell formation. Then he opened his Dharma eyes and carefully looked again. Finally, he flew out with heavy doubts in his heart. How is it? The heaven-devouring beast greeted him and asked with concern. Did Daoist discover anything strange? No, Xiaohua frowned and replied. There are no signs of a spell formation here, so there shouldn't be any array core. Daoist's idea is indeed interesting, but it might be a bit unimaginable. If Lord Dragon God were to set up a spell formation, he wouldn't be so childish. The heaven-devouring beast advised. Perhaps this old man's thinking is too simple. Xiaohua was somewhat depressed. His eyes turned slightly, and no one knew what he was thinking. The heaven-devouring beast laughed and said, Can the human race actually predict Lord Dragon God's thoughts? Little thing, you still have a long way to go in the future. Is the road long? Xiaohua suddenly laughed. He raised his head and asked the truth listener. Senior, even if the array core isn't here, this junior still believes that the array core is definitely on the land of this great desolate continent. Have you carefully checked the surroundings? Of course. Of course this daddy has checked. The truth listener was somewhat displeased. You dare to not believe this daddy? No. Xiaohua hurriedly smiled and said. It's not that this junior doesn't believe senior, but this junior feels that the array core shouldn't be far from here. If possible, I ask senior to look further. Actually, there's no need for that. The truth listener said, this daddy has already listened to everything within 1,000,000 miles, and there isn't any abnormality at all. Xiaohua's face instantly turned ugly. He thought for a moment and said earnestly, this junior would like to ask senior to carefully check again. All right. The truth listener was also straightforward. Without saying anything else, it flew up and really flew around again. When it turned back it said, little thing, this daddy has looked again, and there really isn't. How is that possible? Xiaohua was somewhat puzzled. The array core must be on the Great Desolate Continent. How can it not be there? The Great Desolate Continent is so big. Even if there is an array core of 1,000 miles, where can we find it? The heaven-swallowing beast ridiculed. This daddy thinks that this idea of yours is just wishful thinking. Alas, Xiaohua sighed, looked at the sky, looked at the earth and muttered to himself. Yes, from the 3 peaks of heaven, earth and human to the Ink Zhao Black Forest, from the Tongtian Peak to the array core. Naturally, it would be extremely far, possibly the entire Great Desolate Continent at this point. Xiaohua's eyes suddenly lit up, and he clapped his hands and laughed. Ha ha ha, this Xiao knows. Oh, what do you know? The heaven-swallowing beast's eyes also lit up, and asked curiously. This old man knows where the array core is. Xiaohua's eyes lit up, revealing the power of life in the rain of innate heavy water. The heaven-swallowing beast was stunned, and hurriedly said, You really know where it is? Say it quickly. Chaotian Tower. Xiaohua pointed in the direction of Chaotian Tower, and said confidently, Chaotian Tower? Di Ting and the heaven-swallowing beast cried out involuntarily, looked at each other and said, How is that possible? We have also been to Chaotian Tower's Buddhist pagoda. How come we have never sensed the aura of the dragon god inside? How come we have not found any traces of the dragon array? Xiaohua smiled and looked at the heaven-swallowing beast, and asked, Heaven-swallowing beast, you have been to Chaotian Tower, right? The heaven-swallowing beast's face was somewhat unnatural, and it replied awkwardly, I have been there, but I did not dare to enter that Buddhist pagoda. You cannot go in. If you go in, you will become the pagoda guardian spirit beast inside. Xiaohua was in a good mood and said with a smile, However, even if you did not enter the Buddhist pagoda, you must have seen the symmetrical and inverted Buddhist pagoda inside, right? I have seen it. The heaven-swallowing beast nodded and replied. At that time, I felt it was very strange. I did not know what use these 2 Buddhist pagoda have, or what kind of weapon they are. You only know about weapons, Xiaohua said with a smile. That inverted Buddhist pagoda is probably the center of the entire array, the restriction that connects the peak and the bottom of Tongtian Peak. Or it could be said that it is the link between the sky and the earth of the great desolate continent. Not bad, not bad. The truth listener nodded with some joy. Hearing you say that, this lousy thought about those two Buddhist pagoda opposing each other, and the feeling of going from one Buddhist pagoda world to another Buddhist pagoda world. It really is like that. The head of the human race. What is it made of? The heaven-swallowing beast's voice was close to a whisper. This lousy has entered Chaotian Tower countless times, but I have never thought of it like that. Actually, Xiao Hua replied mysteriously. The reason is very simple. Hurry up and say it. The heaven-swallowing beast could not wait any longer and asked, How do you know? Xiao Hua said neither quickly nor slowly. Actually, previously, when the truth listener and the heaven-swallowing beast worked together to tear apart the heavenly dome array, there was a flash of golden brilliance. At that time, this Xiao thought that it was the sunlight of the sun. But now that I think about it, the sun was about to set back then. The color should have been orange-red, not golden. Furthermore, this Xiao is very familiar with that golden color. Isn't it the yellow sand of Chaotian Tower? And at that moment, the sand of Chaotian Tower should have been submerged by the connate heavy water. The place where such sand can be found should be another inverted world in Chaotian Tower. Therefore, the top of Heaven Ascension Peak, which pierces the sky, is at the bottom of the inverted Buddhist pagoda in Chaotian Tower. This not only did the heaven-swallowing beast gasp, but even the real heaven-swallowing beast and truth listener were dumbfounded. The shock in their hearts was self-evident. They had seen everything that Xiao Hua had said, but they had never thought in this direction. Although it was because Xiao Hua had previously experienced the three peaks of heaven, earth, and man, if they could not string all these details together, how could they arrive at such a strange conclusion? Humans, the heaven-swallowing beast only had this sentence left. Although they had not gone to Chaotian Tower to investigate, the heaven-swallowing beast almost believed Xiao Hua's words. Actually, a bitter expression appeared on the heaven-swallowing beast's face. Taoist, you said so much, but it was all conjecture after the fact. The primordial beasts who received the news of Heaven Ascension Peak had all gone to Chaotian Tower. It's not particularly difficult to link the two together. He, of course, Xiao Hua said with a smile. The heavenly demon thought that what he did was strange. The primordial beasts had already gone to Chaotian Tower. In the future, when they search for the array core, they will definitely exclude Chaotian Tower. However, his attempt to cover it up only makes it more conspicuous. To the point of revealing 300 taels of silver, is really not worth mentioning in this Xiao's eyes. In fact, Xiao Hua had another reason that he did not mention. This was because he believed that this array was set up by the dragon god. Since the dragon god could not move casually, then if he wanted to leave a message, it would definitely be near the array core. Since all the primordial beasts had obtained the news of Heaven Ascension Peak from Chaotian Tower, then Chaotian Tower must be at the peak of Heaven Ascension Peak. Chapter 42-49. Let's go. Ting was a little anxious. It whispered and left with the heaven-devouring beast. The heaven-devouring beast seemed to be a little hesitant. It hesitated for half a cup of tea's time before it took Xiao Hua, and flew towards the imperial palace. Xiao Hua closed his eyes and waited for the light to disappear. However, the heaven-devouring beast's voice sounded in his mind again. Little thing, let me ask you. Do you really think that this formation was set up by the demon lord using the remains of the dragon god? Are you really not lying to me? Xiao Hua's heart thumped. He knew that the heaven-devouring beast was already suspicious. However, he didn't have time to think too much. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and answered truthfully. Actually, this junior thinks that the possibility of the demon lord using the dragon bones of the dragon god is only 30%. Oh, then what about 70%? The heaven-devouring beast's tone didn't fluctuate at all. It seemed that it had already expected Xiao Hua's words. Xiao Hua knew that he was right. However, he still said carefully, the other 70% is, this formation was set up by the dragon god himself. Xiao Hua then told the heaven-devouring beast his guess. Finally, he said, actually, this junior also knows that this formation can't be broken. This junior just wants to find a place to escape. Moreover, this junior also wants to see the dragon god and ask him why he wants to destroy the world. Moreover, why he wants to use senior as bait. After all, this junior doesn't believe that the dragon god is that kind of cold-hearted dragon god. Why does the dragon god want to destroy the world? He doesn't need any reason. The dragon god must have his own reasons. You're asking for nothing. The heaven-devouring beast sighed. This senior actually already knew that this formation must be set up by the dragon god. This senior just wants to see the dragon god and personally ask him why he didn't come to find me even though he knew that I was in the chaotic continent all these years. Why did you abandon me as bait without saying a word? Of course, if the dragon god wants me to be bait, he only needs to say it. How can I not listen to him? Sigh, that's right. This junior also feels that it's unfair for senior. Therefore, this junior wants to ask the dragon god while saving his own life. Xiaohua also agreed. Moreover, if you can really see the dragon god, and if His Highness still remembers our old friendship, I believe that senior won't throw your life away? You think that you're the smart one. The heaven-devouring beast snorted. This is also that bastard's idea. Alright, Xiaohua was also helpless. After all, although these two strange beasts weren't humans, they had lived for so long. What kind of deception hadn't they seen? He didn't have the dragon god's heart. Furthermore, from the looks of it, if Truth Listener were alive, Xiaohua would have a chance of survival. If he were dead, he would definitely drag Xiaohua down with him before he died. He wouldn't tolerate Buddha Subhuti occupying Nanwa Methriya Buddha's Buddha fruit. Moments later, the light in front of Xiaohua slowly vanished. What appeared in front of him was a boundless flood. The heavenly imperial court was a plain to begin with. Now the flood had submerged everything underwater. If not for Truth Listener's extreme familiarity with the area, it would have been difficult to find it. Is it here? Xiaohua's divine sense swept out. He looked again and again, but he still couldn't confirm it. Heaven-devouring beast, do it. The Buddha ignored Xiaohua and said to the heaven-devouring beast. The heaven-devouring beast nodded. It flew into the sky and opened its mouth slightly. A huge whirlpool immediately appeared above the innate heavy water. The whirlpool continued to expand. In just a few moments, it was 1,000 miles wide. At the bottom of the whirlpool, golden sand was exposed. What was strange was that the sand was not corroded by the innate heavy water, nor was it washed away. It was exactly the same as before. The heaven-devouring beast didn't hesitate at all. It opened its mouth again as if it had entered it countless times before. Woof, with a soft howl, spatial ripples like fishing nets appeared among the golden sand. These ripples didn't affect a single grain of sand. Then, a void passage appeared in front of Xiaohua. The heaven-devouring beast looked at the passage cautiously. It turned to look at the Buddha. The Buddha looked puzzled. It didn't seem to find anything inside. I'll go in first. Xiaohua knew that the two beasts were still puzzled. He said and entered the passage first. The passage wasn't short. It was different from the one Xiaohua had entered previously. After entering the wave-like passage, there was a light at the end of the passage. When Xiaohua flew out of the light, he saw the great derivation exquisite pagoda that pierced straight into the sky. Looking at the huge golden sand under the exquisite pagoda of great derivation, and the huge pagoda above his head which was connected to this huge pagoda by its spire in another inverted space, Xiaohua really couldn't associate this huge pagoda with the dragon god. Nor could he associate this huge pagoda with the tragedy of the end of the world. Translator's thoughts. Lu_Kaishian editor. Valvrave. Looking at the huge golden sand under the exquisite pagoda of great derivation, Xiaohua really couldn't associate this huge pagoda with the dragon god. Nor could he associate this huge pagoda with the catastrophe of the world. Seeing that the strange mirror had disappeared, Xiaohua was about to take a closer look at the inverted space, which he suspected was the top of Heaven Ascension Peak, when there was a sound behind him. The heaven-devouring beast and the Buddha had arrived. Behind the heaven-devouring beast, the void passage slowly closed. Did you see anything? A complicated expression appeared on Truth Listener's face. His gaze landed on the pagoda as he asked Xiaohua. This junior didn't see anything unusual. Xiao Hua replied thought-provokingly. However, this pagoda seems to have been here for many years. I wonder if Senior has seen anything? Of course I've come here more often than the heaven-devouring beast. The Buddha pagoda's face revealed endless loneliness, even more so than the heaven-devouring beasts. Moreover, in order to find some clues, I simply moved to the nearby area. But after so many years, I haven't found anything. Senior, what do you want to find? Xiao Hua suddenly asked. The Buddha pagoda had unconsciously been fooled and blurted out. Nonsense, of course it's the trace of my Buddha Lord. However, as soon as the Buddha pagoda finished speaking, it immediately understood. It immediately shut up and glared fiercely at Xiao Hua. In fact, there was no need for the Buddha pagoda to say anything. Looking at the hostility between the Buddha pagoda and the heaven-devouring beast, and seeing that neither of them had news of their master, Xiao Hua had already guessed the ins and outs of the matter. Xiao Hua even knew more than the Buddha pagoda. After all, Jiang Luer had already escaped from the cycle of reincarnation. This meant that the Buddha Lord had already fallen, and the Buddha pagoda was still looking for traces of his Buddha Lord. However, what Xiao Hua didn't understand was why Nanwumethriya Buddha and the Dragon God came here. Why did the two powerful beings start a war, causing Nanwumethriya Buddha to fall into the cycle of reincarnation, and the Dragon God to lose his divine ability and couldn't even move? What purpose did they have to use killing to achieve? Senior, do you think this pagoda was built by the Buddha Lord? Xiao Hua asked. Of course. The Buddha pagoda replied without hesitation. In this primitive continent, other than my Buddha Lord, who else can build such a merciful pagoda? After the Buddha pagoda finished speaking, the heaven-devouring beast's expression changed greatly, as if it had thought of something. The Buddha pagoda was shocked and hurriedly flew a distance away, once again on alert. Just as Xiao Hua had guessed, the Dragon God was in this great formation. If the Dragon God could move, with the divine ability of the Dragon God, it wouldn't have to waste much effort to destroy the world. The reason why the Dragon God couldn't move was because it was suppressed by the pagoda. The Buddha pagoda, the heaven-devouring beast, said faintly, "You don't have to be nervous. You and I are about to die. It's meaningless to worry about the other party attacking now." Yes, that's right. The Buddha pagoda nodded slightly and replied, "No matter who you and I meet, it's our fortune. Perhaps we can all be saved. Let's go over and take a look." The heaven-devouring beast looked up at the top of the exquisite pagoda and said. At this moment, the exquisite pagoda was so similar to the heaven-connecting peak from before. Both of them pierced through heaven and earth, revealing a boundless aura. Xiao Hua wouldn't believe that this pagoda had nothing to do with the heaven-connecting peak even if he was beaten to death. Wait a moment. The Buddha pagoda said. Di Ting knew what the heaven-devouring beast was talking about. As he said that, his figure moved closer to the exquisite pagoda with familiarity. As if he had done it countless times before, the Buddha light around his body flickered. Sure enough, the Buddha light turned into lotuses and fell around the pagoda along with the multicolored light, turning into a lotus seed pod path that led to the top of the pagoda. The Buddha pagoda didn't need the heaven-devouring beast to say anything. He landed on the path first and ran happily on all fours to the top of the pagoda. It looked like he was looking for his master's spirit pet. When the heaven-devouring beast saw this, a rare smile appeared on its face, and also landed on the path. Woof, woof, it barked and followed behind the Buddha pagoda. Enlightened master, please. The heaven-devouring beast hesitated for a moment, and asked Xiao Hua to go first. You go first. Xiao Hua waved his hand. This old man will go last to prevent any accidents from happening. Many thanks, enlightened master. The heaven-devouring beast smiled gratefully and stepped on the path, heading towards the top of the pagoda. Xiao Hua wasn't in a hurry to step on the path. Instead, he took advantage of the fact that there were no restrictions around the pagoda, and quickly scanned the surroundings with his divine sense. However, to Xiao Hua's surprise, although the heaven and earth yuan qi around the pagoda was very rich, the water-type heaven and earth yuan qi was still lacking. It was exactly the same as before. There was no water-type heaven and earth yuan qi wreaking havoc as he had imagined. Xiao Hua's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. He thought to himself, damn it, did I make a mistake again? When Xiao Hua braced himself and reached the top of the pagoda, the heaven-devouring beast and the heaven-devouring beast were already waiting there. They didn't rashly enter the inverted space. Seeing Xiaohua come up, the Buddha pagoda smiled faintly and asked, "If your guess is correct, this is the top of the heaven-connecting peak." "And it should be," Xiaohua said hesitantly. "I'll know when I go take a look." At this point, even Xiaohua, who had long felt that he had a card up his sleeve, was nervous. Chapter 4250. What is this place? Is it the same space as ours? Sky Devouring asked curiously. "Why don't I go in and take a look first?" "Of course." Di Ting smiled and replied casually. "You can go first." "Okay," Sky Devouring said and plunged into the inverted space. Xiaohua, Di Ting, and Sky Devouring Beast all stood there motionlessly, quietly waiting for something. Sure enough, in just a moment, Sky Devouring Beast flew out of the space barrier again in a sorry state, shouting, "Damn it, it's really weird." Haha, Di Ting couldn't help but laugh. He looked at Sky Devouring Beast lovingly and said, "Haste makes waste. You can slowly comprehend it." Hot tofu. Sky Devouring Beast's figure that was flying towards the space barrier suddenly stopped. It turned around with saliva in its mouth and said with a smile, "Great-grandfather, what kind of delicacy is this hot tofu?" "Damn it, you glutton." Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry and urged, "That's the food of the human race. If you want to eat it, this old man will bring you to eat it when there's a chance in the future. Hurry up and go in first." Yes, Sky Devouring Beast swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva and slowly rushed into the space barrier again. This time, Xiaohua and the others could clearly see that Sky Devouring Beast slightly adjusted its position above everyone's head and stood there steadily. Sky Devouring Beast stood firmly and said a few words to Xiaohua and the others through voice transmission. Unfortunately, Xiaohua and the others couldn't hear anything at all. Xiaohua cautiously asked Di Ting, "Senior, we should go in too, right?" Di Ting didn't speak, but looked at Sky Devouring Beast. Sky Devouring Beast's face revealed a worried expression. After a moment, seeing Sky Devouring Beast flying towards the bottom of the pagoda, Sky Devouring Beast took a deep breath and said, "I'll go in first." After saying that, Sky Devouring Beast urged its body to crash into the space barrier. "Senior, please." Xiaohua suppressed his curiosity and respectfully asked Di Ting to go first. "You go in first." Di Ting seemed to have something on his mind. He looked at the pagoda below him absent-mindedly and instructed Xiaohua. Xiaohua nodded and was about to leave when he suddenly said, "Senior, the interior of the pagoda is the same as when we entered before, right? Is there anything unusual?" This time, the Harkin learned its lesson and didn't answer immediately. Instead, it glanced at Xiaohua and slowly replied, "It's no different from before. This is not the time for selection, so there won't be any pagoda guardian spirit beasts." "That's good," Xiaohua said meaningfully. His figure also rushed into the inverted space. After Xiaohua stabilized himself, he immediately scanned the surroundings with his divine sense. However, contrary to Xiaohua's expectations, not only was there no abnormality within the pagoda, there was also no abnormality within a radius of 10,000 miles. The golden sand on the ground and the distant mountains and valleys were no different from the last time Xiaohua had come to investigate. In fact, the heaven-earth yuan qi in this space was the same as in the other space. It was also water-based, and the heaven-earth yuan qi was still lacking. It wasn't as abundant as Xiaohua had imagined. Motherfucker, Xiaohua almost cursed, because at this moment, the heaven-swallowing beast was coldly looking at him. Although it didn't say anything, the ridicule in its eyes was obvious. Devouring Heaven, seeing that the Harkin had yet to arrive, Xiaohua instructed the Devouring Heaven Dao, "Go take a look inside the pagoda, okay?" The Devouring Heaven Dao didn't say anything and entered from the 9th floor of the pagoda. At this time, the Harkin had just passed through the space barrier. Similar to the heaven-swallowing beast, the Harkin immediately frowned as soon as it entered the inverted space. Its two ears twitched slightly, but only for a moment. It looked coldly at Xiaohua and asked, "Little thing, do you have anything to say?" Xiaohua shrugged and looked into the distance. He shook his head and said, "This junior has nothing to say. Since there's nothing abnormal here, we might as well stay here. After all, there's no connate heavy water here. If it's possible, in a few days, this junior will send those ancient beasts that I've collected into my magical artifact here. It can be considered as giving them a new home. No. The Harkin said almost resolutely. How can those disgusting ancient beasts stay here? If you dare to let them out, this daddy will immediately kill them all. The corner of Xiao Hua's mouth curled up, and he asked with interest, why not? There's no why. If this daddy says no, then no. The Harkin replied unreasonably. Xiao Hua asked curiously, Senior, could it be that you've discovered something? Nothing, it's the same as before. The Harkin shook its head impatiently. If there's nothing else, shall we leave now? Xiao Hua looked at the heaven-swallowing beast and narrowed his eyes. He spoke again. Senior, could it be that you think this isn't actually a great formation set up by the dragon god, but a Buddhist formation set up by the Namo-Maitreya Buddha? Or perhaps, you've already noticed something else out of the ordinary? So much so that you don't even plan to explore other places and want to chase us away. Scram! The Harkin roared and shouted. Damn little thing, what do you know? Put away the filth in your heart. My Buddha Lord is the real Namo-Maitreya Buddha. How can he destroy the world? My dragon god is also the god of the dragon race. It's even more impossible for him to destroy the world. The heaven-swallowing beast also roared and shouted. Right now, the imperial court is filled with pagodas and the aura of Namo-Maitreya Buddha. It's completely different from when this daddy was here. Do you dare say that the destruction outside is not the work of your Buddha Lord? Xiao Hua was slightly taken aback. He asked the heaven-swallowing beast with some surprise. Senior, you mean that the imperial court wasn't like this before? That's right. The heaven-swallowing beast replied. In the past, there were pagodas in the imperial court, but they were pagodas. There was no Buddha Lord's aura at all. Now, isn't this Buddha Lord's aura too dense? If this destruction has nothing to do with Namo-Maitreya Buddha, how can this be explained? Hiss. Xiao Hua frowned. His heart jumped. He understood better than the two beasts that Namo-Maitreya Buddha had already reincarnated. It was impossible for him to still be here. Then why was there still a dense aura of mercy? Then only the Buddha Lord's remains were left. But why didn't he reveal his aura before? But now he revealed it again. Xiao Hua couldn't help but think about it. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua understood a little. Pengu axe. Only when Pengu axe wasn't in the inverted space of the imperial court could it not suppress the aura of the Buddha Lord's remains and let this aura escape. Who took out this Pengu axe? Then it could only be the dragon god that he had never met before. Xiao Hua thought of this and couldn't help but look at Di Ting worriedly. Di Ting had always been hostile to him, believing that his Buddha Bodhidharma body had snatched Namo-Maitreya Buddha's Buddha light. However, Di Ting had always believed that his Buddha Lord was still alive. The Buddha Bodhidharma body could only snatch a limited amount of Buddha light, and it was even more impossible for him to snatch away Namo-Maitreya Buddha's Buddha fruit. Furthermore, he didn't have the Buddha Lord's Buddha edict, so it wasn't convenient for him to kill Xiao Hua. However, if Di Ting knew that Namo-Maitreya Buddha had reincarnated into Jiang Luer, and it was impossible for Jiang Luer to take back the Buddha light obtained by Buddha Bodhi, how could Di Ting not make a move on him? Daoist while speaking, the heaven-swallowing beast walked out from the bottom of the pagoda. It raised its head and transmitted. There's nothing in the pagoda. I didn't find anything unusual. It's really strange. Xiao Hua felt an incomparable headache. He really wanted to throw away his responsibility. What did the billions of living beings in the great wilderness continent have to do with him? However, this thought only flashed through his mind. Looking at the huge pagoda, Xiao Hua understood that the answer to the riddle was in this pagoda. He had worked so hard to reach this step. There was no reason for him to give up. Alas, Xiao Hua's eyes turned and he sighed. Even if it wasn't the dragon god who was desecrated by the demon lord, then it's very likely that the Buddha Lord was desecrated by the demon lord. If this extermination of the world succeeds, the Buddha Lord, no matter how many transformations his golden body has, I'm afraid it will all collapse. The Buddhist light of billions of years will all turn into demonic light. Senior, you've followed the Buddha Lord for so many years. Don't you want to help the Buddha Lord escape from the sea of suffering? Don't you want to see the Buddha Lord? Little Ant the truth listener smiled coldly and looked at Xiaohua with even more contempt. The Buddhist light around its body flourished, and that Buddhist light triggered the Buddhist light of the pagoda. In an instant, the truth listener became even more arrogant. This daddy has followed the Buddha Lord for who knows how many years. I also don't know how many different forms of the world I've seen. How can this daddy not know what you humans are thinking? Do you think this daddy will be stupid enough to believe you? Scram, you want to scram out of the imperial palace right now? Don't even think about touching this pagoda with a single finger. Xiaohua shrugged and smiled faintly. This Xiao doesn't care. This Xiao doesn't have any injuries on his body. I don't need to see any highness. And I don't need to seek redress for injustice. Moreover, this Xiao previously thought that it was the demon lord who tarnished the dragon god's bones, but now it seems. The truth listener's body immediately emitted an inexplicable aura. That aura was like a giant hand, enveloping nearly 10,000 miles around the pagoda. Xiaohua felt his vision darken. Whatever Buddhist light, whatever light shadow, everything turned into a monstrous fury that pounced on him. Although this fury could strangle Xiaohua, he didn't panic at all. He stood there as if he had a card up his sleeve. He didn't believe that the heaven-devouring beast, who knew that the dragon god might be suppressed by the Maitreya Buddha, would ignore it. Sure enough, without waiting for the truth listener's aura to fall, the heaven-devouring beast slightly raised its head. The heaven-devouring beast's aura immediately swallowed Xiaohua's aura, leaving not even a trace behind. Heaven-devouring beast, the truth listener's expression changed. It said coldly again, "What are you doing?" "Nothing." The heaven-devouring beast said coldly, "Since we've reached this step, whether it's the dragon god, the Maitreya Buddha, or the Buddha Lord inside this pagoda, I think we should meet them." Chapter 42:52. Then the heaven-swallowing beast turned to Xiaohua and said, "Little guy, don't be afraid. I'm here. Whatever you want to do next, just do it according to your own thoughts." "Senior, please wait a moment." Xiaohua successfully caused the confrontation between the two beasts. After bowing to the heaven-swallowing beast, he flashed into the pagoda and carefully released his Buddhist sense to explore. Unfortunately, it was as the heaven-swallowing beast said. There was nothing in the pagoda. Xiaohua flew out of the pagoda and entered another space. He also started from the beginning of the pagoda until he reached the bottom of the pagoda. Diting looked at Xiaohua coldly and did not speak. The heaven-swallowing beast looked at Diting coldly, guarding against Diting's sudden attack. The heaven-swallowing beast was like a bullied little wife. It kept a distance from the two beasts and carefully accompanied them. Xiaohua walked out of the pagoda and used his Buddhist sense to look into the distance. Then he patted his forehead and opened his delirium eyes. A moment later, Xiaohua flew back to the inverted space and also released his Buddhist sense to look into the distance. Diting sensed Xiaohua's Buddhist sense, and the Buddhist light on its body moved slightly. The heaven-swallowing beast sneered. Diting glanced at the heaven-swallowing beast and concealed the killing intent in its heart. It sneered and said, "I want to see what you can find." Xiaohua did not speak. He stood on the ground and opened his delirium eyes again. When he saw everything in front of him, he was stunned. Because the pagoda in the previous space did not have a specific outline, he could only see the occasional Buddhist light. However, the pagoda in the inverted space was indeed a real pagoda. Exquisite tower of great derivation? Damn it, how can there be two of them? Xiaohua was shocked and hastily flew up again to look up. After a few more glances, Xiaohua's shock gradually disappeared. This was because the appearance of this pagoda was exactly the same as the exquisite tower of great derivation. However, there were some differences in the delirium breaker eye. In the eyes of Xiaohua and the others, they were unable to distinguish these differences in a hurry. This pagoda also had 9 levels. At the top of the pagoda, there was the sun and moon, overflowing with the light of the sky. At the base of the pagoda, there were mountains and rivers, revealing the great virtue of the earth. And at the eaves of the 9 levels of the pagoda, there were clouds and jade, showing infinite brilliance. No. Xiaohua finished looking at the pagoda and frowned. This doesn't seem to be a pagoda. It's not my Dao Sect's Dharma artifact either. Instead, It was the imperial artifact of a Confucian cultivator. How? How could there be imperial equipment here? Could it be that other than the dragon god, the Maitreya Buddha, and the Buddha Lord, there was someone else here? Or perhaps this Zhao's guess is correct? Little thing, the Harkin sneered. What did you see with your third eye? Xiaohua closed his delirium eyes and pointed at the pagoda. There is another pagoda inside this pagoda. Everything we saw was an illusion. How is this possible? The Harkin was shocked. It twitched its ears in disbelief, but the expression on its face did not change much. The heaven-devouring beast naturally released its primordial perception as well, and even opened its mouth to release waves towards the Buddhist pagoda. However, the two beasts, without exception, showed a puzzled expression. Obviously, they didn't find anything unusual. Senior Xiaohua opened his mouth. There's no need to look anymore. The pagoda in that layer is fused with the pagoda in the outer layer. Only if we break the pagoda in the outer layer, we might be able to see the pagoda in the inner layer. Who dares? The Harkin originally wanted to drive Xiaohua and the heaven-devouring beast out of the skyward tower. How could it allow them to break the pagoda now? The Harkin roared, and the Buddhist light around its body soared into the sky. Its voice shook Xiaohua's mind until it was buzzing with pain, like the legendary Buddhist lion roar. Of course I dare. The heaven-devouring beast was even more unaffected by the Harkin's words. Its body trembled, and the pitch-black demonic cloud appeared again, and its body expanded several times. The Harkin was not surprised by the heaven-devouring beast's attitude. He only looked at Xiaohua coldly. Xiaohua's body turned cold. The Harkin's fierce gaze was like a flying sword that wanted to pierce through him. Xiaohua sneered. At this point, did he still have the chance to retreat? Even if the nameless pagoda was the dragon god or the Buddha Lord, for his own survival, for the billions of lives in the Chaos Continent, Xiaohua would definitely give up his life. I dare to. Xiaohua straightened his body and took a step forward. His voice was not loud, but the unquestionable tone was more real than gold and stone. Damn it! The Harkin cursed angrily. Its entire body suddenly expanded, and its aura completely changed. It was no different from when it was in front of the heaven-connecting peak. Buddhist lotuses appeared in the surrounding space, and each of them contained terrifying negative karma. In the center of these Buddhist lotuses, wisps of blood-red light resembled stamens, tainted with incomparable desolation amidst the benevolence. The heaven-devouring beast roared at the sky and swung its huge head in midair. Buzz! Tens of thousands of black gas immediately flew out from the demonic cloud phantom that soared into the sky. When the black gas landed in the air, it immediately transformed into small heaven-devouring beasts. Each heaven-devouring beast emitted a strange fluctuation from its mouth as it pounced towards the Buddhist lotuses within the Buddhist light. The moment these fluctuations landed in the air, they immediately produced spiral-like spatial ripples that enveloped the Buddhist lotuses. The Buddhist lotuses spun as though they were about to be annihilated by the spatial ripples. However, wherever the Buddhist light around the Harkin flickered, endless heavenly flowers fell from the void. Not only did the heavenly flowers disperse the void ripples created by the heaven-devouring beast, but they also made the Buddhist lotus's rotation as stable as a boulder. Truth Listener and the heaven-devouring beast were evenly matched to begin with. Furthermore, the two beasts' injuries were the same. It was very difficult to determine the victor between them under normal circumstances. As for Xiaohua, Truth Listener did not take him seriously at all. Unfortunately, Truth Listener was wrong. At that moment, there was a wild roar. Not far from the two beasts' battle, countless hurricanes were produced. Countless indescribable fluctuations were produced in the void. The Chaos Continent's alien realm also began to distort in the hurricanes. An aura that was enough to affect the battle and make Truth Listener and the heaven-devouring beast feel threatened gradually revealed itself. Truth Listener and the heaven-devouring beast were shocked. They hurriedly looked over and saw that the bone-honing Xiaohua had already rushed out of the space above Xiaohua's head. The triangular blood bone was falling on the heaven-devouring beast's head. This Truth Listener turned pale with fright and cried out, Where did you get the heaven-devouring beast's bone? Quick! Quick! The heaven-devouring beast was overjoyed. Hurry up and give me a hand. Let's kill this damn Truth Listener first. Kill the blood bone landed on the celestial skeleton's head, and an ugly celestial with 3 heads and 6 arms quickly took shape. A thunderous voice came out of the celestial skeleton's mouth, and it was very straightforward. Wu. As soon as the heaven-devouring beast was born, different rays of light shot out from its 3 mouths and rushed towards Truth Listener like a waterfall. The primordial aura was even more obvious than that of Truth Listener and the heaven-devouring beast. Although the power of this ray of light was insufficient, wherever it went, fine lines would appear in the space. A slight sound of thunder was produced from these fine lines. Swish wherever the ray of light landed. The countless heavenly flowers that Truth Listener summoned were destroyed. The Buddha lotus that was as stable as a rock moved and fell towards the heaven-devouring beast's mouth. Moreover, the edges of the Buddha lotus were also destroyed by the ray of light. Few seeing that the ray of light was weak, Truth Listener let out a long sigh and sneered, "So it's just a piece of paper. With such strength, you still dare to show off?" Hee, the heaven-devouring beast suddenly let out a strange laugh. When this laughter fell into Truth Listener's ears, it actually made him feel uneasy. Rumble 2 of the heaven-devouring beast's arms waved slightly in mid-air, and the somewhat dim ray of light suddenly brightened. Countless thunderbolts and thunder threads bloomed from the ray of light like flowers, instantly destroying more than 40% of the Buddha lotus. Damn it, Truth Listener was alarmed. He was already seriously injured, and did not dare to rely on his body to fight head-on with the heaven-devouring beast. Therefore, the 2 beasts tacitly used spells to fight. However, spells were not his forte. In particular, although the heaven-devouring beast controlled by bone-honing Xiaohua looked inferior to Truth Listener, if he used his body's ability, the heaven-devouring beast was still much more powerful than Truth Listener. Therefore, the heaven-devouring beast's innate lightning power could match up to 40% of the power of Truth Listener's spells after being injured. Under the situation where Truth Listener and the heaven-devouring beast were evenly matched, not to mention 40% of the power, even 10% of the power was enough to push the victory to Xiaohua and the heaven-devouring beast. How could this situation not shock Truth Listener? With 40% of the Buddha lotus destroyed, the remaining could no longer resist the devouring of the small heaven-devouring beasts. Just as Truth Listener was shocked, they were all sucked into the heaven-devouring beast's stomach. After obtaining the Buddha's light, the heaven-devouring beast's body swelled up again, turning into endless demonic aura once again, and pouncing on Truth Listener, sealing the space within millions of miles around Truth Listener. Even the connection between the pagoda and Truth Listener was cut off. After Truth Listener lost its connection with the pagoda, the Buddha's light immediately shrank rapidly, revealing Truth Listener's scarred body. "Little thing. I'll definitely kill you," Truth Listener yelled, his body suffused with a bloody light. Within the bloody light, fist-sized golden swan runes tumbled out like bubbles. As the golden swan runes tumbled, the sound of a wooden fish, the chanting of sutras, and the chanting of thousands of Buddhas came out from the golden swan runes. Layers of bloody Buddha's light surged out from the golden swan runes, not only piercing through the sealed demonic aura, but also turning into a bloody phantom that pounced on the heaven-devouring beast. The phantom had already been born, and the golden swan runes had completely turned into a golden liquid. Every drop of the liquid was like a minor chiliocosm, surging with the powerful power of karma. Haha, the heaven-devouring beast laughed. "Truth Listener, you've even used the bloody Buddha's shadow. I'm afraid you're already at the point of exhaustion, aren't you?" As it spoke, the heaven-devouring beast's figure pounced forward. The demonic clouds around its body merged with the demonic clouds that had previously sealed Truth Listener. A loud explosive sound was produced from the demonic clouds and the Buddha's shadow, and the entire space shook violently from this sound. Chapter 4253. Wu. Just as space trembled, Truth Listener suddenly moved. Its figure stirred up a gust of wind in space as it pounced at the celestial with its single horn. Hon Xiaohua was taken aback for a moment, but he immediately understood Di Ting's plan to create a diversion. He smiled coldly, and his 3 heads spat out thunderbolts while his 6 arms reached into the void. The space around Di Ting rippled, and 6 skeletal arms were revealed. Before the skeletal arms appeared, Truth Listener suddenly opened its mouth. A fluctuation visible to the naked eye stirred up spatial folds. It was as though a fishing net had been lifted in front of Truth Listener, instantly binding the Celestial's 6 arms. Furthermore, the fluctuation's momentum didn't diminish. While extinguishing the lightning, it also sealed the Celestial's white bones. Bone-honing Xiaohua was shocked. Darkness appeared in front of his eyes and ears as a dizziness arose in his mind. He couldn't stand steadily. Just as the Celestial's white bones staggered and tried to break free from Truth Listener's sound wave, Truth Listener raised its head fiercely and looked at Xiaohua. Its gaze suddenly landed on Xiaohua like lightning. At that moment, Xiaohua's essence had been absorbed by the Celestial's white bones. He was extremely weak as he stood in midair dispiritedly, barely maintaining his balance. Truth Listener looked at Xiaohua. Xiaohua's heart immediately shrank. He had already seen through Truth Listener's sinister intentions. Truth Listener clearly wanted to fight to the death and kill him before Truth Listener was killed by the heaven-devouring beast. Xiaohua's face was pale as he urged his body to escape. However, he wasn't Truth Listener's match to begin with. Now that his essence was damaged, he was no match for Truth Listener. Just as his body flew, Truth Listener's body had already escaped from the space sealed by the demonic aura like a blood-colored qilin. Although the demonic aura tore off his flesh and blood in midair, Truth Listener had already pounced in front of Xiaohua's head in a few breaths. The murderous aura had already controlled Xiaohua's surroundings. Xiaohua found it difficult to breathe, let alone use his dermic powers. What are you trying to do? Xiaohua desperately tried to dodge. His pale face was filled with panic. The Harkin was no more than 300 meters away from Xiaohua. Behind him, the heaven-devouring beast was blocked by the blood-colored Buddha image, and the Deva skeleton was trapped by the sound waves. Although the two of them were about to break through the encirclement, and although the Harkin would be killed by the two of them in mere moments, at this moment, Xiaohua was the absolute ruler of this area. His goal was very simple. He wanted to deal a fatal blow to this human who had given him a sense of threat since he appeared on the Eldritch continent. Furthermore, he had absolute confidence that he could kill this human. Truth Listener lashed out with its hoof, shattering space and time. Light and shadow distorted as the despicable human's horrified face magnified infinitely in front of Truth Listener's eyes. However, at this moment, a roar that made Truth Listener feel disgusted from the bottom of his heart resounded. A wave of devil chi that made Truth Listener tremble in fear was born. Xiaohua's fearful expression suddenly turned into ridicule, and his trembling body suddenly became as steady as a mountain. Amidst this steadiness, Xiaohua's left hand, which had been hidden in his Taoist robe, suddenly swung out. Truth Listener saw a flash of black light, and thousands of layers of devil chi sealed the surrounding space. Before he could even think of trembling, his huge body had already been split into two by the devil saber. Not only that, as the devil saber shrank back into Xiaohua's Taoist robe, the thousands of layers of devil chi turned into thousands of devils, madly pouncing on Truth Listener's corpse and desperately devouring the Buddha's light. When the heaven-devouring beast destroyed the blood-colored Buddha image and looked at Xiaohua in shock, all the Buddha's light had already disappeared. Those devils were devouring the flesh and blood under the Buddha's light. Xiaohua coldly snorted and raised his left hand again. At this time his left hand was slightly trembling, but devil chi gushed out from the surface of his body and quickly formed a layer of devil armor on his left arm. Immediately after, Xiaohua's left hand grabbed, and the devil shadow pounced on Truth Listener's corpse. The thousands of devils that were preparing to devour the flesh and blood were frightened and scattered in all directions. The devil shadow fell into Truth Listener's corpse and passed through it. When the devil shadow flew out with a bloody light, Truth Listener's corpse turned into flying ash and scattered in the air. Come here. Xiaohua's mouth was filled with killing intent. The blood-colored devil shadow obediently fell into Xiaohua's left hand. The entire devil shadow spun rapidly in Xiaohua's left hand, and finally condensed into a red-black rhombus. Come out! Xiaohua ordered again, and the devil shadow obediently flew out of the red-black rhombus. The rhombus instantly turned into a sparkling and translucent blood-colored rhombus, emitting a misty luster. The luster rushed out of the rhombus and turned into Truth Listener's appearance. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and looked at the blood-colored rhombus. His mind swept it into the space, and then his left hand moved. Whether it was the devil shadow, devil head, or devil chi, they all shrank back into his body. You are the devil. The heaven-swallowing beast's tone was filled with surprise, but its expression did not change much. Xiaohua respectfully said, "This junior has a devil clone. I presume senior already knew." If this junior did not know the devil clan's cultivation method, how could I know that the dragon bones of Supreme Dragon God were defiled by Supreme Dragon God? At this time, bone-tempering Xiaohua also urged the Celestial to fly back. In order to not cause the heaven-swallowing beast to misunderstand, Xiaohua kept bone-tempering Xiaohua and the Celestial. The heaven-swallowing beast looked thoughtfully at Xiaohua keeping the Celestial, and said indifferently, "At this time, you don't have to hide anything from me. You want to kill the Maitreya Buddha in this pagoda, right? Moreover, there is no dragon god here." "Senior is wrong," Xiaohua said with a smile. "This junior can clearly tell senior that there is no Maitreya Buddha in this pagoda. If there is, it is only the remains of Maitreya Buddha. In other words, there must be a dragon god in this pagoda, and it is Supreme Dragon God who is using the remains of Maitreya Buddha to confuse Di Ting." "How is that possible? How do you know?" The heaven-swallowing beast seemed to be in disbelief. "I and Di Ting have spent who knows how much effort and time to find out the truth. How do you know so well?" "It's very simple," Xiaohua explained. "Namo Maitreya Buddha has already reincarnated, and his reincarnation is this junior's nephew." "Ah?" The heaven-swallowing beast was stunned on the spot, and said hesitantly, How can it be so coincidental?" "Yes, it is so coincidental. I don't know if senior knows that there is an ancient saying in our human race, called there is no story without coincidences. Many things seem to have been arranged, and it is unimaginable." Xiaohua nodded and said, "When Junior saw the Buddha statue of Namo Maitreya Buddha, I already knew about this coincidence. So when Junior didn't know about the relationship between Di Ting and Namo Maitreya Buddha, Junior didn't think much of it. But when Junior knew about this relationship, Junior already understood that Di Ting will definitely not let Junior off, and he will definitely force Junior into a dead end." Human race, a human race. The heaven-swallowing beast looked at Xiaohua, truly speechless. "The human race has always claimed to be the leader of all living things, and I have always scoffed at it. But looking at it today, this sentence is not without reason." Actually, Xiaohua said again, "If Di Ting didn't have killing intent towards Junior, Junior would definitely not make a move. I believe Senior can also see this." "He," the heaven-swallowing beast sneered. "How can he not have killing intent? He is the same as me, and won't live for long. How can he let go of a human who snatched the Buddha light from his Buddha Lord? He has carried his Buddha Lord for millions of years. I believe this is also the reason why Senior is not worried about Junior," Xiaohua said with a smile. "Alas, if I didn't fight with Di Ting, it would have been fine. This fight has already worsened my injuries, and I am like a dried-up oil lamp. You don't even need to make a move, and I will die. At this point, why should I be afraid of you?" The heaven-swallowing beast sighed lightly, and didn't hide anything, answering honestly. At this point, the heaven-swallowing beast's eyes suddenly turned and asked, "That's right, that Pangu axe, you really didn't take it?" Xiaohua looked at the pagoda, then looked at the heaven-swallowing beast, and said with a smile, "Senior doesn't need to be depressed. Venerable Dragon God is in this pagoda. As long as Senior finds Venerable Dragon God, won't these injuries be trivial?" "I hope so." Seeing that Xiaohua didn't answer his question, the heaven-swallowing beast somewhat understood, but then Xiaohua replied seriously, "That's right, Senior, that Pangu axe, Junior really didn't take it." Hearing this, the heaven-swallowing beast's heart that had just understood instantly became confused again. He didn't understand what Xiaohua meant by himself. "Senior, please wait a moment." Xiaohua ignored the heaven-swallowing beast's confusion, and flew up. Although it was very slow, it was still much better than before when he used the Deva Whitebone. And the heaven-swallowing beast casually responded, and watched Xiaohua fly towards the pagoda. "Heaven-swallowing beast, come here." Xiaohua flew towards the pagoda, looked up at the heaven-swallowing beast in the distance, and said, "It's enlightened master." The heaven-swallowing beast stuttered. It seemed that this child was frightened. "Try using the nine-toothed rake, see if you can topple this pagoda." Xiaohua instructed. Hearing that Xiaohua wanted it to work, the heaven-swallowing beast finally breathed a sigh of relief and activated its avatar, waving the nine-toothed rake and hitting the pagoda. Buzz! The pagoda burst with a burst of Buddhist light, not only blocking the nine-toothed rake, but also sending the avatar flying. The heaven-swallowing beast was a little scared, but it didn't dare to be negligent. It took a deep breath, and the aura around its body surged. The nine-toothed rake flashed with hundreds of afterimages and attacked the pagoda. Unfortunately, the result didn't change, except that the heaven-swallowing beast was pushed back dozens of miles. No need. Xiaohua waved his hand, stopping the heaven-swallowing beast from attacking again. The heaven-swallowing beast at the side suggested, "This pagoda is very powerful, in my opinion. I'm afraid we'll have to use Pangu Axe. You'd better go out and find Pangu Axe first." Of course, Xiaohua wouldn't reveal the whereabouts of Pangu Axe. He smiled bitterly and said, "With Junior's strength, I don't know how long it will take to reach Tongtian Peak. If I look for Pangu Axe and come back, this innate heavy water will probably flood the primitive continent several times." Chapter 42-54. Then there's no other way. Heaven-swallowing beast wags its tail, looking like it wants to help but can't. If I didn't have any injuries, I could give it a try. But now, I don't dare to casually make a move. Junior will think of another way, Xiaohua says and moves his body to look around the pagoda. Soon after, Xiaohua flies over the space barrier and comes to the other side, looking left and right at the pagoda. Finally, Xiaohua flies to the top of the pagoda and looks at the mirror-like space barrier and ponders. Heaven-swallowing beast and heaven-swallowing beast wait for a moment, look at each other and fly up to the sky at the same time. Seeing the two beasts fly over, Xiaohua's eyes suddenly light up, and he reveals a confident smile. Heaven-swallowing beast and heaven-swallowing beast fly over the space barrier and see Xiaohua coming over with a smile. Heaven-swallowing beast's face shows surprise and it says anxiously, "Daoist, you've already thought of a way?" Hee, of course. Xiaohua nods and says while looking at the pagoda under his feet, "This pagoda and the pagoda in the inverted space are definitely not simple. The reason why the scenes in these two spaces are inverted is because of these two pagodas. Previously, when this Xiao arrived at the Imperial Palace, the space barrier was a mirror, reflecting all the scenes in this space to the other space. After this Xiao shattered the mirror, the space barrier appeared. This Xiao had always thought that the mirror was a restriction, but now, this space barrier is the real thing. But the reality is not so. The current space barrier is actually the surface. The mirror is the real thing. How can heaven-swallowing beast and heaven-swallowing beast understand this?" Both beasts had a baffled look in their eyes. "Haha," Xiaohua says with a smile. "Actually, to be more clear, this pagoda under this Xiao's feet is the same as the pagoda in the inverted space. This pagoda is the real pagoda. The pagoda in the inverted space above our heads is only the reflection and surface of this pagoda. Its purpose is to cover the real pagoda in the other inverted space. And in that pagoda, there are the remains of Lord Dragon God and Namomethria." See heaven-swallowing beast takes a breath of cold air and rubs its eyes in disbelief. It looks at the pagoda under its feet and says, "Daoist, what you said is too profound. I can't understand." "I think I understand." The heaven-devouring beast frowned and said, "Little thing, do you mean that there are two different pagodas in each of these two spaces? The one above us is the real pagoda used by Supreme Dragon God to set up the formation, and the pagoda below us is just a cover for that pagoda?" "Indeed," Xiaohua nodded. "If we blindly attack the pagoda in the inverted space, it would be like attacking the pagoda's shadow. We would never be able to break the pagoda. Only by attacking the pagoda in this space would we be able to break the pagoda in the inverted space." "I don't understand." Sky Swallowing sniffled and replied, "I only understand that we need to attack this pagoda." Seeing that the two beasts didn't understand at all, Xiaohua simply didn't say anything more. He raised his hand and patted his head, calling out, "Fellow Taoist Xiaohua, Xiaohua, Xiaohua of the dragon bloodline, Xiaohua of the phoenix body, Xiaohua of the bone tempering, Xiaohua of the green robe, Bodhi of the Buddha, and Xiaohua of the devil spirit," all flew out and said in unison, "I greet you. I believe that fellow Taoists already understand. Xiaohua pointed at the exquisite tower of great derivation and said, only by pushing down this pagoda can we see the truth of the matter. Only then can we save the billions of lives in the great wilderness continent from the flood. Watch I's method. Bone-honing Xiaohua was the first to roar. He opened his mouth and streams of heaven and earth yuan qi entered his mouth. His great wilderness dharma body rushed into the sky. The bronze brilliance of his body reflected an emerald green color. A spirit that wanted to compete with the heavens pounced towards the exquisite tower of great derivation. Seeing Xiaohua move, Xiaohua of the dragon bloodline also opened his mouth and let out a dragon roar. His huge dragon body was revealed, and the dragon horn on his forehead glowed with a mysterious dragon pattern. Xiaohua of the phoenix body didn't want to be left behind, so he spread his wings and let out a deafening phoenix cry. The power of the stars and moon fell into his phoenix body, and layers of phoenix phantoms appeared on Xiaohua's feathers. Xiaohua of the Confucian body opened his mouth. Buzz, buzz, the 9 cauldrons glowed with multicolored light, and gathered into a huge cauldron shape in midair. The destiny of the human race fell from the sky, and its momentum was no less than that of the exquisite tower of great derivation. Xiaohua of the demon spirit was even more arrogant, and his demonic aura covered the lower half of the exquisite tower of great derivation. Tens of thousands of blood demons rushed out crazily, and tore at the Buddha's light at the base of the pagoda. The Buddha's light tore the space apart, and whether it was the heavenly flowers, Buddha phantoms, or Buddha's voice, they all fell into the demonic aura and disappeared. Xiaohua of the green robe stood on top of Xiaohua of the demon spirit. As he waved his hands, thunderbolts condensed into the shape of a sickle, and wherever the sickle's blade passed, the void couldn't take shape. Namo Maitreya Buddha. Buddha Bodhi chanted the name of Buddha, and stepped on a Buddhist lotus. The million Buddha painting reflected layers of Buddha phantoms on his body. Buddha Bodhi's hands formed a seal in front of his chest, and the power of mountains mixed with the power of stars was about to smash the pagoda. Xiaohua opened his mouth, and the seal of overturning the sea rushed into the sky. Wherever the rays of light passed, lines of jade appeared around the seal of overturning the sea. Xiaohua urged his magic power and shouted, fellow Taoists, let's attack together. As the seal of overturning the sea fell, all of Xiaohua's avatars moved in tacit understanding. Other than the devil spirit Xiaohua and the green-robed Xiaohua, who were at the bottom of the pagoda on the other side, the other avatars were at the top with Xiaohua on one side. All kinds of divine abilities were unleashed together, and countless rays of light soared into the sky. Even the rumbling sound resounded throughout the entire space. Not to mention the sky-devouring beast was dumbstruck. Even the sky-devouring beast's face was somewhat moved. Its previous calmness had already begun to weaken, and its main body under the demonic cloud slightly shrank back a bit, raising its vigilance. Namo Maitreya Buddha, Namo Maitreya Buddha. But within the pagoda, the chanting that sounded like thunder also sounded along with Xiaohua's attack. That Buddha's rays of light were like the rising sun, covering the brilliance of all kinds of divine abilities and magic treasures. Even within that Buddha's rays of light, a small world that was like a sea of sand once again appeared. These small worlds were born and extinguished along with the Buddha's rays of light, and gave birth to an endless amount of telekinesis. This telekinesis was continuous like spring water, unceasingly slashed by sabers, and its power was inexhaustible. It protected the entire pagoda. No matter how Xiaohua and the others attacked the pagoda until its light and shadow were distorted, and even the nearby space was fake, the entire pagoda didn't collapse like Xiaohua and the others thought it would. In a short moment, the raging force all disappeared. Xiaohua and the other avatars somewhat awkwardly appeared in midair. The Buddha's rays of light from the pagoda were still there, and all kinds of strange phenomena from before had already disappeared along with the Buddha's rays of light, just like the pine trees on the cliff in the fierce wind. Little thing, the heaven-swallowing beast opened its mouth. Didn't you say it clearly before? This pagoda is the center of these two spaces, and is also the key to the great array. Do you think that with your strength, you can break it? You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Sigh. Xiaohua sighed. How could he not know that his strength was insufficient? Even if several of his avatars were all at the great ascension stage, In this chaos divine realm, they really couldn't even be compared to the spiritual beasts they were riding. But at this time, in the entire space, in the entire chaos continent, how many assistants could he rely on? Only the penguax. The heaven-swallowing beast seemed to be egging him on. Even if I am at my peak strength, I still have to rely on the penguax to split this pagoda open. It's just like toppling Tongtian Peak. The bone-honing Xiaohua looked at this similarly sky-reaching pagoda, and inwardly pondered whether or not he should take out the celestial bones. At this time Buddha Bodhi opened his mouth. Namo Maitreya Buddha, this poor monk has an idea. Speak. Xiaohua asked indifferently. Our strength is insufficient. Facing this pagoda, we can only use our wits and not our strength. Buddha Bodhi didn't care about Xiaohua's attitude and replied. This poor monk saw that this pagoda was built in the shape of the exquisite derivation pagoda, but in fact, it's not the exquisite derivation pagoda. If we use the exquisite derivation pagoda to break it, it'll be easy. The Confucian cultivator Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, Grandmaster's words are very true. Although we don't know who built this pagoda, but it seems the possibility of Zhang Luer's actions in his previous life is quite high. He must have some thoughts. Only in this life can he rely on the exquisite derivation pagoda to break the array. Unfortunately, the exquisite derivation pagoda is now in Grandmaster's hands. Under a freak combination of factors, the Tao of Heaven wants to borrow our hands to solve the disaster of the flood. Xiaohua didn't comment, and only replied indifferently. After obtaining Xiaohua's help, Buddha Bodhi returned to his Naiwan palace. When he came out again, he was holding the exquisite derivation pagoda that was overflowing with Buddhist light. Exquisite derivation pagoda. Although the heaven-devouring beast was mentally prepared, when it saw the real exquisite derivation pagoda, it still couldn't help but cry out. At the side, a faint trace of madness flashed through the heaven-devouring beast's eyes. Xiaohua and his clones all held their breaths and stared at Buddha Bodhi with rapt attention. Buddha Bodhi flew out of his Naiwan palace and landed at the base of the pagoda. He chanted the exquisite leaf scripture, and the exquisite derivation pagoda immediately fell into the Buddhist light of the pagoda. When the Buddhist light of the pagoda came into contact with the exquisite derivation pagoda, it instantly reflected thousands of Buddhist kingdoms. Within these kingdoms, there were countless Buddhist shadows of Nanwu Maitreya Buddhas smiling while holding flowers. When the exquisite pagoda fell into the pagoda, the Buddhist light of the entire pagoda suddenly converged towards the interior of the pagoda. After that, a rumbling sound could be heard from within the pagoda. A circle of Buddhist light flew out from the base of the pagoda and rushed towards the top of the pagoda. Wherever the Buddhist light passed, the originally indestructible pagoda collapsed layer by layer. The 9-layered pagoda collapsed in just a few breaths of time. The ring of Buddhist light didn't stop after reaching the top of the pagoda. It rushed through the space barrier and landed on the top of another pagoda. Then it followed the top of the pagoda and fell toward the base of the pagoda. Chapter 4255. Unlike the collapse of the pagoda in the inverted space merely overflowed with light and shadow. After the extraordinary Buddhist light faded, a huge pagoda with a dense and noble aura appeared. How is this possible? Is it really like this? The heaven-devouring beast couldn't believe its eyes. This was a mystery that even Di Ting couldn't see through, but a little cultivator of the human race actually saw through it. Moreover, he was able to easily uncover this mystery. Xiaohua didn't pay attention to the heaven-devouring beast's shock. Instead, he narrowed his eyes and looked at the exquisite pagoda that had replaced the pagoda. A feeling of the vicissitudes of time involuntarily emerged from the bottom of his heart. At that time, he was still a chi condensation cultivator. Because of a stroke of luck, he obtained the exquisite derivation pagoda during a fierce battle between two foundation establishment cultivators. From then on, he embarked on the path of Buddhist cultivation. Now the exquisite derivation pagoda had arrived at this moment. Tens of thousands of years later, in this unfamiliar place, he was about to settle the karma from countless years ago. Fate. Is it really so wonderful? Xiaohua muttered. However, in a moment, his heart felt as if it was being pierced by needles. Because if he hadn't obtained the exquisite pagoda in the Imperial Thunder sect, it would have been obtained by Jiang Luer in the future. It would have been the step he took to enter the Buddhist sect and blocked Jiang Luer's path forward. There were 3,000 great Daos, and every cultivator was fighting for a chance of survival. Xiaohua was no exception. However, Xiaohua didn't want to snatch the chance of survival from his junior, and he didn't want to erase his senior sister's hope from this world. Thinking of this, Xiaohua's joy of breaking the seal disappeared. Xiaohua indifferently ordered, "Take it." Namo Mithriya Buddha. Buddha Bodhi nodded and chanted Buddhist scriptures. The exquisite pagoda once again fell into his hands. At this time, there was no longer a pagoda in the entire space. A heavy pressure fell from the sky, as if the entire sky was about to collapse. "Fellow immortal, you're a bit reckless." Confucian cultivator Xiaohua was somewhat displeased. "It's better to let Grandmaster try first. If there's any mishap, all our previous efforts would have been in vain." Xiaohua said disapprovingly. "Won't. This space is one with the inverted space above our heads. Before either space collapses, the other will definitely not collapse. That space is supported by the giant tower, so there won't be any problems for the time being." As he spoke, Buddha Bodhi sent the jewel derivation pagoda into his Niwan palace, and came out again. However, he only stood behind the crowd and looked up worriedly without saying anything. Little thing. The heaven-devouring beast firmly believed in Xiaohua now, and it said, "What should we do next?" "Enter the tower." Xiaohua raised his head and looked at the huge tower overflowing with awe-inspiring qi. He said confidently, "All the secrets are in this huge tower." "All right." The sky-devouring beast nodded and charged into the sky with the sky-devouring beast. At this time, the spatial barrier was even thinner, and there was no resistance at all. When Xiaohua and his clone fell into the inverted space, an aura that made Xiaohua's body tremble came from the giant tower. Fellow Daoist, the scholarly cultivator Xiaohua suppressed the excitement in his heart, and said in a low voice, "This is the heaven and earth pagoda. If I'm not wrong, it should be the mother and child pagoda. There is also a child pagoda inside. Oh, don't ask me how I know. This is the information from the literati star. It should be the holy news of all the saints." Xiaohua was overjoyed and asked, "Do you know how to collect it?" "What we Confucian cultivators emphasize is passing on the torch." The scholarly cultivator Xiaohua smiled and said, "The holy news of the literati star is the inheritance of our human race since the birth of our race. There are countless profoundness in it, so it naturally has the secret of how to collect the heaven and earth pagoda." "So you're saying?" Xiaohua was shocked. Just as he was about to ask, the scholarly cultivator Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "This kind of inheritance is similar to the demon race, but it is different from the demon race. I can only use it when I need it, or when my cultivation reaches a certain level. Moreover, my usual cultivation is different from the literati star. After all, we Confucian cultivators emphasize sailing against the current. If we don't advance, we will fall behind. The saints definitely won't let their descendants reap without sowing." All right, Xiaohua understood that his extravagant hope of obtaining the Confucian cultivation technique from the saints' literature song was shattered. "Fellow immortals, please wait a moment." The scholarly cultivator Xiaohua said confidently. He soared into the sky and landed on the top of the heaven and earth pagoda. He opened his mouth and the 9 continents cauldrons flew out. Then he raised his hand and patted the top of his head. 5-colored true qi gushed out and landed on the 9 continents cauldrons. The 9 continents cauldrons let out a rumbling sound and clusters of mountain, river, and country patterns flew out from the cauldrons and landed on the heaven and earth pagoda. Strangely, when these mountain, river, and country patterns landed on the top of the heaven and earth pagoda, they immediately fell down along the body of the pagoda. Every time they passed by a layer of clouds, some of them would be left behind. When all 9 layers of the pagoda eaves merged with the mountain, river, and country patterns, the body of the heaven and earth pagoda let out a chanting sound. "Fellow immortal," at this moment, the scholarly cultivator Xiaohua said to the dragon bloodline Xiaohua with a smile, "The sun and moon in the sky and the clouds covering the sky are the sky. The yellow soil laying the foundation and the mountains and rivers as the roots are the earth. The royal aura is the authority and the mountains and rivers as the seal are the monarch. The 5 elements are the form and the country is the tool is the human being. At this moment, the heaven, the earth, and the human are all present. It's time for fellow immortal to suppress them with the mountain and river seal. Good. The dragon bloodline Xiaohua laughed and opened his mouth. The mountain and river seal rushed into the sky with the royal aura, and the 9 province cauldrons resonated with the nation weapon. When the mountain and river seal landed on the cauldrons, the entire heaven and earth tower let out the sound of flowing water. Along with the sound of flowing water, the sun and moon at the top of the tower moved like the rising and setting sun. As the sun and moon changed, the top of the tower was gently opened and the 9th layer of the tower turned into a giant plum blossom. After the plum blossom bloomed, it revealed the empty tower. At the same time, a dense benevolent aura uncontrollably leaked out from the bottom of the plum blossom, and a faint Buddhist light shined out. Why is it like this? Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and revealed a surprised expression. It was as if the emptiness inside was different from what he expected. The heaven-swallowing beast was originally vigilant, but when it saw that the tower was empty, it rejoiced but also felt a bit disappointed. It sniffed and coldly said, "Pangda's axe was placed here before. There is the aura of Pangda's axe inside." "I see." Xiaohua pondered. He looked at the 8th layer of the tower and said, "If I'm not wrong, this 8th layer of the tower should be a Buddhist artifact. Before Pangda's axe was hung on the heaven-connecting peak, it was placed here to suppress Buddhist artifacts." "That's right." The heaven-swallowing beast nodded and said, "But I can't think of any other Buddhist artifact that Di Ting's Buddhist lord has that could compete with Pangda's axe other than the exquisite derivation pagoda." At this point, the heaven-swallowing beast hesitated, but after a while, it transmitted its voice. "I thought Lord Dragon God was in the 9th layer of the tower, but I didn't expect him to not be there. Moreover, we caused such a huge commotion when we destroyed the heaven and earth tower. Why didn't he do anything?" Senior Confucian cultivator Xiaohua explained. "Didn't I say earlier? The heaven and earth pagoda is a mother-child pagoda, and there's a sub-pagoda within it. The sub-pagoda and the main pagoda are 2 different spaces. Lord Dragon God should be in the sub-pagoda, and he should be at the bottom of the heaven and earth pagoda right now." "All right." The heaven-swallowing beast nodded and said no more. Then Dragon Vein Xiaohua and Confucian cultivator Xiaohua once again activated the mountain river seal and 9 province cauldrons on the heaven and earth tower. The 8th layer of the tower slowly bloomed like a lotus flower. As the lotus flower bloomed, a Buddhist light that connected heaven and earth was produced. Wherever the Buddhist light went, countless rivers of faith were born from the void and poured into the Buddhist light in an endless stream. Between heaven and earth, an incomparably solemn aura began to gather. Countless flying flowers, Buddha shadows, and heavenly dragons were also revealed. At the center of this multitude of strange phenomena was the Buddha shadow of Nanwu Maitreya sitting cross-legged. One of its hands pointed to the sky and the other pointed to the ground. It was the only one in the world. Looking at the appearance of this Buddha shadow, wasn't it the same as the one enshrined in the stone giant's magma shrine? Wasn't it Jiang Luer's appearance? And in this Buddha shadow, a 9-colored relic flashed with indescribable Buddhist light and emerged from the void. "This is Nanwu Maitreya's relic." The heaven-swallowing beast opened its mouth in shock and couldn't help but cry out. Lord Buddha has indeed reincarnated. And he even left all his reincarnation merit points here. Luer Xiaohua also couldn't help but tremble. He was already familiar with the Buddhist secret arts, so how could he not know the function of this ancient relic? Previously, he had thought of many possibilities. He thought that this could be the remains of Nanwu Maitreya, or it could be Nanwu Maitreya's relic. But he absolutely didn't expect that Nanwu Maitreya would leave all his merit here to condense into relic. No wonder Luer couldn't be accurately born in the Dawn Rain continent. No wonder he couldn't find the exquisite tower of great derivation first. No wonder I put him in the space to be destroyed for hundreds of years. No wonder he fell into the tribulation of sutra-seeking in paradise. At this point, Xiaohua finally understood. Because before he reincarnated, he was simply staking everything on one throw. He didn't bring any merit or karma with him when he reincarnated. Could it be that he encountered some great difficulty here? So much so that he took such a risk because he couldn't grasp it? Thinking of Jiang Luer's suffering, Xiaohua's heart couldn't help but ache. In the lotus-shaped pagoda, Namwamethraya's Buddhist light overflowed. Layers of Buddhist halls and halls appeared one after another, magnificent and magnificent. And these halls and halls slowly sank into the 7th level of the heaven and earth pagoda under the Buddhist light, as if they were also suppressing something. Little thing. The heaven-swallowing beast withdrew its shock and said, "There's no need to say more." The relic of the 8th level is to suppress something in the 7th level. If Diding was here, this relic would naturally be his. It's very useful for his cultivation. Since he's not here, then it's his. Following this hymn, the heaven-swallowing beast looked up at Buddha Bodhi, who was hiding not far away. Chapter 42:56. The sky-devouring beast looked up at Bodhi and said meaningfully, "I can see that he and Ting's Lord Buddha are of the same lineage. Besides, in this life he has snatched the opportunity from Ting's Lord Buddha. All he needs to do is devour the fortune, and Ting's Lord Buddha will be gone in this life. No, that Ting's Lord Buddha will be gone forever. He will never have the chance to attain the fruit of Namwamethreya." Xiaohua nodded. This junior understands. Saying that, Xiaohua released his mind and wrapped the fortune, wanting to put it into the space. However, in his mind, the fortune was heavier than a mountain. Xiaohua's mind couldn't move it at all. Oh. Xiaohua frowned slightly. He glanced at Buddha Bodhi in the distance, who had lowered his head and ignored him. Xiaohua patted his head again. A Buddhist light rushed out and landed on Siley. Unfortunately, Siley was still as steady as a mountain and did not move at all. Little fellow, the heaven-devouring beast, was getting impatient. It sent a telepathic message. Kylie is the accumulation of merit from the countless reincarnations of Namwamethreya Buddha. How could it be collected by an outsider? Xiaohua was unwilling to give up. He raised his hand and took out the Jewel Divination Pagoda and Mahavairakana Buddha's edict. He wanted to take the fortune into the Jewel Divination Pagoda. But it just so happened that even after Xiaohua exhausted all his abilities, he was still unable to move the Jewel Divination Pagoda in the slightest. Fellow immortal Confucian cultivator, Xiaohua's eyes were a bit red. He looked up and asked, "Can it be that we can only enter the 7th floor after taking away the fortune? Since you already control the heaven and earth pagoda, why can't you directly?" Without waiting for Xiaohua to finish, Confucian cultivator Xiaohua immediately answered, "This junior actually doesn't control the heaven and earth pagoda. Instead, I used the mountain river seal and the 9 province cauldrons to suppress the heaven and earth pagoda. Without Namwamethreya's fortune suppressing the 7th floor, we can naturally enter. However, with the fortune suppressing it, how can we pass the 8th floor? Moreover, if we can't pass through the 8th level of the pagoda, we won't be able to enter the other levels of the pagoda, let alone break the formation. It seems only you can do it?" Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and looked at Bodhi with ridicule. Namwamethreya. Buddha Bodhi did not refute. He stepped on a Buddhist lotus and arrived in front of Siley. Although Buddha Bodhi's Buddhist light was not as bright as Siley's Buddhist light, when it came into contact with Siley's Buddhist light, it blended into the Buddha shadow like water and milk. The moment the Buddha's light entered, Siley trembled violently. The Buddha's shadow on Siley opened its eyes and tears of blood flowed out of its eyes. The tears of blood flowed down the Buddha's cheeks and slowly dripped onto the 8th level of the pagoda. Namwamethreya Buddha. As the tears of blood dripped down, Siley began to recite the exquisite leaf sutra, one word at a time. Namwamethreya Buddha. As soon as Siley's Buddha shadow's voice rang out, Bodhi also sat down cross-legged and pointed one finger at the sky and the other at the ground. His eyes were slightly closed and he began to recite the exquisite leaf sutra. His recitation matched Siley's. As the exquisite leaf sutra was recited, Bodhi's Buddhist light seeped into Siley's Buddha shadow like hundreds of millions of tentacles. The Buddhist kingdom phenomenon also slowly disappeared. All the clones who had their attention on Bodhi heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, a cold, bloodthirsty, and emotionless voice rang out not far from Bodhi. "Let go of Siley." As soon as the voice rang out, an earth-shattering killing intent filled the space. Within this space shrouded by killing intent, Wisps of blood-red devil flame mixed with pitch-black devil chi emerged from the void. When the devil flame and devil chi landed in the air, they transformed into ferocious devils. All the clones were shocked and hastily looked towards the source of the voice. They saw that the source of the voice was Xiaohua. However, at this moment, the badge on Xiaohua's chest was seeping with blood. A broken heart-shaped mark was overflowing with devil chi. This devil chi was like a surging fountain that constantly gushed out of Xiaohua's chest. This devil chi not only entered the surrounding space, but also covered Xiaohua's body and gradually transformed into a devil armor. At this moment, the devil armor was different from before. An extremely large amount of Xianming devil lightning flickered between the devil flame and the blood-red color. This devil lightning condensed into a knot and covered the entire devil armor. Moreover, behind the devil armor, several tens of feet long devil thorns suddenly stretched out. The space near the devil thorns had already begun to distort and become extremely unreal. In particular, at devil god Xiaohua's back, a huge irregular mirror had already formed an outline. It was incomparably dark inside, and even light couldn't escape. Moreover, within the darkness, an indescribable aura leaked out from the edges of the outline. This aura was full of blood and evil. The moment the aura leaked out, light and shadow flickered in the air. Within the light and shadow, there was a strange devil kingdom vision. However, this light and shadow flashed and disappeared. Even with Xiaohua's many clones, none of them could see it clearly. Devil sovereign? Confucian cultivator Xiaohua was the most sensitive to the aura of the devil race. When he saw Xiaohua's devil chi rush out, his expression immediately changed, and he couldn't help but shout, "Devil spirit brat, what's going on? Big brother has turned into a devil." Devil spirit Xiaohua had a long face. The blood-red figure appeared on the surface of Xiaohua's devil armor, and was struggling with all his might. However, no matter how he struggled, he couldn't escape from the devil chi. "This little brother can't break free, damn it!" Confucian cultivator Xiaohua cursed angrily. "Why didn't you step into the devil sovereign realm earlier or later? Why did you step into the devil sovereign realm at this time?" Big brother's devil spirit Xiaohua had an innocent face. He tried to stick his head out and shouted, "This has nothing to do with this little brother. Although this little brother has devoured the devil spirit of the devil formation, if I want to advance into the devil sovereign realm, now is not the time. This little brother still needs some blood spirits. Damn thing, quickly get to the point." Confucian cultivator shouted. "Why are you still thinking about blood spirits now?" Yes. Devil spirit Xiaohua was very afraid of Confucian cultivator Xiaohua. He hurriedly explained, "Forcefully advancing into the devil sovereign realm wasn't something this little brother deliberately did. It was Big Brother who pushed me. Just now, when Big Brother forcefully occupied this little brother's devil body, this little brother realized that Big Brother actually already had a heart devil when we entered this great desolate continent." "Nonsense," Confucian cultivator Xiaohua berated. "When we were in the ruins, we already killed the heavenly devil. How could he have followed us to the great desolate continent?" Devil god Xiaohua's aura rose little by little. His doppelgangers were really at a loss. Confucian cultivator Xiaohua and dragon bloodline Xiaohua were currently busy suppressing the heaven and earth pagoda. They couldn't spare too much energy to stop devil god Xiaohua's advancement. Buddha Bodhi was sitting cross-legged, chanting the exquisite leaf scripture along with Tsili's Buddha image. He acted as if he didn't hear devil god Xiaohua's situation. How could the other doppelgangers like Phoenix Body Xiaohua and Green-robed Xiaohua be a match for devil god Xiaohua? Hearing Confucian cultivator Xiaohua's berating, devil spirit Xiaohua explained again, "Big brothers, there's something you don't know. It was only when Big Brother occupied this little brother's devil body that this little brother was able to clearly see the ins and outs of the matter." "Motherfucker, hurry up and say it. If you delay any longer, my true body will really be beyond saving." Dragon bloodline Xiaohua was truly anxious. Demonic chi covered several thousand miles of space. A sealing force that was several times stronger than the blood drop paradise gradually emerged. It was like a demonic cocoon wrapping everything within the inverted space. A feeling that made dragon bloodline Xiaohua tremble with fear rushed into his heart. He couldn't help but curse as he found it difficult to control the mountain and river seal. Yes, devil spirit. Xiaohua was also somewhat at a loss at this moment. He hurriedly replied. Big brother has always been concerned about Jiang Luer. Long before Jiang Luer went to Nirvana to seek the sutra, he would rather give up his life to forcibly stop her. He felt that since he brought Jiang Luer to the hidden immortal continent, he must protect Jiang Luer well. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to answer to senior sister. As soon as we entered the wilderness continent, we began to fight for Jiang Luer's past life's merits. Big brothers, do you still remember the Buddha shrine and Buddha statue in the lava of the stone giant? It was also at that time that Big Brother had already planted the heart devil. And as time passed, Big Brother's heart devil grew stronger. Now, at this moment, Senior Heaven-Swallowing Beast had clearly said that the fortune was Jiang Luer's last hope for cultivation in this life. Without the fortune, Jiang Luer's cultivation path would be blocked. Jiang Luer could only cultivate from the beginning again. Thinking about how he had personally blocked his nephew's path of survival, Big Brother, in the end, he had turned into a devil. He himself wanted to stop Master Bodhi from collecting the fortune. Fellow Taoist, you're smart all your life, but this time you're stupid. Green-robed Xiaohua couldn't help but mutter. Jiang Luer is only one person, even if he was Namo Maitreya Buddha in his past life. But now, there are billions of living beings in the wilderness continent. How can one person compare to billions of living beings? If billions of living beings die, the entire wilderness continent will be destroyed. But if Jiang Luer's path of survival is blocked, he can find another way to survive. Speaking of which, scholarly cultivator Xiaohua sighed, and a look of realization and difficulty appeared on his face. He said, but you have to know that Jiang Luer is our nephew, but billions of living beings are not. We can't use the lives of billions of living beings to force fellow Taoists to personally destroy Jiang Luer. Moreover, if you don't love one person, how can you love the world? If fellow Taoist doesn't even cherish Jiang Luer, how can he cherish the world? Alas, with such a difficult choice, it's no wonder that fellow Taoist would turn into a devil. Phoenix cultivator Xiaohua also sighed. If it was me, I also wouldn't know how to deal with it. Forget it. This matter is the foundation of fellow Taoist's rebirth. I can't participate. Everything depends on fellow Taoist's choice. No matter what fellow Taoist decides, I will agree. While speaking, Phoenix cultivator Xiaohua spread his wings, flew back several miles, and landed in a corner of space. Green-robed Xiaohua blinked his eyes. Seeing that every time Buddha Bodhi finished chanting a layer of the Heart Sutra, Devil God Xiaohua's devil chi would rise by a layer, he also sighed and said, originally, we were born from the same root. Why are we in such a hurry to destroy each other? I also can't choose. After speaking, green-robed Xiaohua's figure flashed and landed on the other side of space. Chapter 4257. Fuckbone Honing. Xiaohua was a little dumbfounded. He looked at the furious Xiaohua and then at Buddha Subhoodie, who insisted on chanting the scriptures. He didn't know what to say. In the end, he could only curse at fiend spirit Xiaohua. I knew you were the root of disaster. I shouldn't have let you live back then. Brother, I'm innocent. Fiend spirit Xiaohua really wanted to cry but had no tears. This was clearly Xiaohua's main body that had been demonized. Furthermore, he had forcefully taken over his fiend body. He was the victim. Unfortunately, Bone Honing Xiaohua ignored him. He stepped on a cloud and landed in another spot in space. He squatted down gloomily and drew circles in the air with his thick fingers in boredom. Seeing that all the avatars had chosen to leave, Confucian cultivator Xiaohua and dragon bloodline Xiaohua were helpless. They looked at each other and flew up slightly. Although the two avatars didn't say anything, their actions clearly told everyone that they were also watching from the sidelines. Xiaohua's avatars had made their decision. The Heaven-Devouring Beast and Heaven-Devouring Beast beside him also looked at each other. Heaven-Devouring Beast was the first to fly back a few kilometers. He was just a minor character in such a situation. It was already good that Xiaohua didn't kill him when he killed Truth Listener. How could he dare to say another word? When the Heaven-Devouring Beast saw that Heaven-Devouring Beast had also left, he looked coldly at Fiend Celestial Xiaohua. He didn't retreat or charge forward. Only his eyes revealed a thought-provoking expression. It was exactly the same as the look he had when he spoke of the importance of Kylie. After all, the exquisite Leaf Sutra was a Buddhist scripture. There was always an end to the chanting. When the 7th level of the Buddhist scripture was finished, Kylie's Buddha figure paused slightly and raised her head. Her face was already covered in blood and tears. However, Buddha Subhuti didn't stop. He continued chanting the incomplete Buddhist scripture on the 8th level. As the scriptures filled the space, the devil chi actually showed signs of retreating. Furthermore, the Buddha light that had fused with Silei's Buddha shadow fell on Silei like a hot knife through butter. Buzzed Silei emitted a dazzling light. The entire Buddha shadow collapsed rapidly amidst the dazzling light, turning into a blood-colored Buddha light that fell into Silei. Demon god Xiaohua shook his arms and roared towards the sky. Demon god Xiaohua spat out a mouthful of demon blood that could make even Confucian cultivator Xiaohua tremble. When the blood landed in the middle of the surrounding demon chi, it immediately turned into 81 huge blood demon heads. When these blood demon heads appeared, they also roared towards the sky. However, they didn't spit out any demon blood. Instead, they produced an unparalleled suction force. Hundreds of millions of tiny blood demon heads were swallowed by these 81 blood demon heads. In just a few breaths, these 81 blood demon heads actually turned transparent and turned into 81 strange demon patterns. Demon god Xiaohua coldly snorted. Those 81 demon patterns ignored the space and firmly sealed the 8th layer of the heaven and earth pagoda in an instant. Demon god Xiaohua waved his left hand, and the devil saber murder appeared in his left hand. Immediately after, demon god Xiaohua slowly lifted his foot and walked towards Buddha Bodhi. With every step demon god Xiaohua took, the entire blood-dripping space would tremble. The surrounding devil chi would spurt out a mouthful of blood-colored light and cleanse the space. When demon god Xiaohua arrived in front of Buddha Bodhi, it was exactly 81 steps. The entire space also trembled 81 times. The entire space was filled with despair and deathly stillness. Demon god Xiaohua looked at Buddha Bodhi who was sitting cross-legged, then looked at the Buddha light that had already covered Silei's surface. His hoarse voice was like that of a god, containing a kind of ruthlessness. Are you going to stubbornly cling to your own course? That's right. Although Buddha Bodhi still hadn't finished reciting the exquisite leaf scripture, he still stopped and raised his head. His eyes were filled with compassion and determination. This little monk already made a decision when the flood fell. This little monk is willing to sacrifice himself for the sake of the billions of living beings in the great desolate continent, regardless of the outcome. You are forcing this venerable. The emotion in demon god Xiaohua's voice became increasingly faint. Buddha Bodhi raised his eyes to look at demon god Xiaohua and said, neither too fast nor too slow. What joy is there in life? What bitterness is there in death? If this little monk can die for the sake of billions of living beings, this little monk is not afraid. Speaking up to hear, Buddha Bodhi's eyes revealed a trace of warmth and said, Sandalwood, this little monk understands your heart. This little monk has never wanted to make things difficult for you. Didn't this little monk already say it when I first stepped into the great desolate continent? This little monk will absolutely not snatch Luer's Buddha fruit. This little monk has also once made a great vow that if the netherworld's demons are not eradicated, this little monk will absolutely not become a Buddha. Now this little monk has once again made a great vow. Everything this little monk has obtained today, no matter how it was obtained, will definitely be returned to Jianglu, or in the future. Even if this little monk can attain Buddha fruit today, this little monk will absolutely not attain it. Since you don't want to make things difficult for this venerable, then step aside. Demon god Xiaohua said coldly, as long as you don't touch this fortune, this venerable will absolutely not touch a single hair on your head. If you don't take this fortune away, the billions of living beings in the great desolate continent will have no way to survive. Buddha Bodhi continued to persuade demon god Xiaohua. This little monk is only temporarily using this fortune. When this little monk returns to the hidden immortal continent, this little monk will immediately pass away in meditation and return all of this Namo Maithreya's merit to Jianglu. When you fuse with this fortune, you will instantly attain Buddha fruit. At that time, this venerable is afraid that this venerable will not be able to control you. Demon God Xiaohua replied. This venerable cannot guarantee that you will be able to return this Buddha fruit to Jianglu. This venerable cannot believe you. Namo Mithriya Buddha Buddha Bodhi chanted the name of Buddha, and no longer tried to explain himself. Instead, he slowly chanted the exquisite Leaf Sutra. Under the Buddha's light, the Namo Mithriya Buddha gradually took form almost without any hesitation. A ghost-like howl was born in the air. Before this howl, a pitch-black saber light flashed through the air. The entire space seemed to be split into two halves. The devil saber murder in Xiaohua's left hand finally landed on Buddha Bodhi's body beyond the expectations of all the clones. Namo Mithriya, endless Buddha chanted the name of Buddha Bodhi's golden body. Dang dang, dang, countless sounds of wooden fish came from the rank 8 Buddha lotus. Swish, 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 innumerable flashes of blood flew out from the mirror behind Buddha Bodhi's head. Buddha Bodhi's golden body was split into two by the devil saber murder. His flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The golden liquid in the flesh and blood also filled the surrounding 100 jong of space. In this bloody scene, 10,000 Buddhas wailed, 10,000 flowers withered, and the Buddha light was dyed red. The 81 translucent devil runes let out extremely arrogant and wild laughter. Wung, the entire heaven and earth pagoda let out a rumbling sound. Confucian cultivator Xiaohua and Dragon Vein Xiaohua, who were suppressing the heaven and earth pagoda, looked at this scene in disbelief. Dumbstruck expressions appeared on their faces. Seeing Buddha Bodhi's flesh and blood fuse with the golden liquid, and that human figure slowly disappear, Dragon Vein Xiaohua rubbed his eyes and asked Confucian cultivator Xiaohua in a loud voice, Immortal, fellow immortal, I didn't see wrong, right? This should be an illusion, right? Little monk Bodhi was killed by Xiaohua just like that? This shouldn't be possible, right? Confucian cultivator Xiaohua didn't reply. Instead, he looked for a moment and said with a bitter smile, If this little one's guess is correct, this is real. Our main bodies have already turned into devils. He really killed Buddha Subhuti. But why didn't the little monk fight back? Dragon Vein Xiaohua was very anxious. Other than fellow immortal, only the little monk is the nemesis of devil god Xiaohua, right? Because Confucian cultivator Xiaohua's face emitted a kind of holy radiance. His words were filled with reverence, because the little monk Bodhi wanted to die for the billions of living beings in the great desolate continent. He wanted to use his own death to tell our main bodies that he didn't have any selfish motives. He could give up everything he had. As long as our main bodies took away the treasures and broke the innate heavy water world destroying great array, he used his own death to repay everything he owed Jianglu. Damn it, Dragon Vein Xiaohua's eyes shed 2 drops of tears. Little monk, I am inferior to you. Congratulations, fellow Taoist. Confucian cultivator Xiaohua looked at Dragon Vein Xiaohua. There was no joy in his tone. You're crying. I'd rather not cry. Dragon Vein Xiaohua stuck out his tongue and licked the tears at the corner of his eyes. I'd rather be that kind of dragon vein who doesn't understand emotions and only knows how to cultivate. That's just a kind of extravagant hope. Confucian cultivator Xiaohua looked at Dragon Vein Xiaohua and said with a double meaning, We still have a long way to go. We still have to experience a lot. Along the way, what we gain is always more than what we lose. But Dragon Vein Xiaohua still wanted to say something. Suddenly, a wave of fluctuation appeared in the space of the blood drop paradise. This fluctuation appeared in an extremely strange manner. It was like a heartbeat and also like a breeze. However, at the origin of the fluctuation, the devil chi that sealed the surroundings of the heaven and earth pagoda was suddenly rushed out by this fluctuation, creating a void passage. Damn it, just as the fluctuation appeared, demon god Xiaohua roared. The devil's saber in his hand turned into a bolt of lightning and landed at the location of the fluctuation. Shua, the space within several hundred zhang was like a pool of clear water being split in half by the flying sword. Between the two halves of the space that was split in half, there were still tens of thousands of spatial fine lines from before. These fine lines were now filled with devil chi and devil flames. The devils hidden in the blood drop paradise roared and pounced towards the fluctuation that was also split in half. However, beneath the group of demons, there was a faint ripple that flashed like an undercurrent. Within this ripple, an obscure void passage flashed and disappeared. In just a split second, the void passage landed on the 8th layer of the heaven and earth pagoda. The space of the entire pagoda began to twist and distort rapidly. Xiaohua felt his vision blurred for a moment. Then the golden body of Buddha Subhuti, together with the rainbow of Namo Maitreya Buddha, disappeared in a bizarre manner in this void tunnel. The clones were greatly alarmed and hurriedly looked towards the origin of the fluctuation. They saw the heaven-swallowing beast standing there proudly with its mouth slightly open, a faint Buddhist light overflowing. Chapter 4258. 9th Grade Buddha Lotus? Happiness-melting heavenly demon was shocked. Why is it in your hands? The heaven-devouring beast did not answer. Instead, it opened its mouth and the Buddha lotus fell into its mouth. Damn it! Take it out for me. Happiness-melting heavenly demon cursed and waved its left hand. It was also the killing devil saber. There was no demonic aura or demonic light. It was just a simple flash of light, and the killing devil saber hacked into the heaven-devouring beast's head. Roar! The heaven-devouring beast's last roar was not a bark. A blood-red sound wave rushed out and blocked the killing devil saber for a few breaths. However, it was only for a few breaths before the purple Buddha lotus disappeared. Happiness-melting heavenly demon roared again. Damn it! Then the killing devil saber did not stop. The killing devil saber passed through the heaven-devouring beast's body. After the killing devil saber passed through, the blood-red light and Buddha light flew out along with the killing devil saber. The heaven-devouring beast's body turned into ashes and scattered in the air. The blood-red light spun rapidly at the tip of the killing devil saber. It condensed into a crystal-clear blood-red rhombus that emitted a misty luster. It was exactly the same as when Di Ting was killed. However, the luster that rushed out of the rhombus crystal was in the form of a heaven-devouring beast. As for that cluster of Buddhist light, it was emitted by Buddha Bodhi when he fused with the ancient Sili. At this time, it had already fused with the purple 9th grade Buddhist lotus. With the fusion of the Buddhist lotus, Buddha Bodhi had already touched the Tsili's Buddhist light and thoroughly penetrated the Tsili. As the Tsili melted, an 8-foot-tall Namwa Maitreya Buddha once again stood up from the golden liquid without fear. However, this Namwa Maitreya Buddha no longer had Buddha Bodhi's original appearance, but instead looked like Jiang Luer. Heaven-devouring beast. Happiness heavenly demon swallowed the blood-red crystal formed by the heaven-devouring beast's soul and shouted fiercely, "How dare you spoil my plan? I will torture you to the point of death, and let you know how powerful I am." After Happiness heavenly demon finished speaking, it stretched out a thick finger and pointed at Bodhi's bald head. It laughed and said, "You're an interesting little monk. It seems like you already knew that there was something fishy about the Maitreya Buddha Lord, but why didn't you tell your true body? Could it be that he wanted to be the last one standing and bear everything himself? However, how can your tender little shoulders bear all of this?" Not only was he killed by the main body, but all his previous efforts were also absorbed by the Maitreya Buddha Lord's Kylie. "You said you were a little monk now? Or Lord Maitreya?" "Namo Maitreya Buddha." Buddha Bodhi only chanted the name of Buddha and did not answer. "Actually, it doesn't matter if you're a little monk or the Maitreya Buddha Lord. None of them can affect my grand plan, because I've already obtained the exquisite leaf scripture back in the imperial palace." Happiness melting heavenly demon chuckled. "With this item, I'll be able to refine 70% of the Maitreya Buddha Lord's fortune. Now, with the body of a deva and the billions of blood spirits in the primitive continent, I will be able to step into the realm of fiend deity and escape from this damned turbulence of time." At this point, the heavenly demon of Huala Heaven suddenly stopped talking. He looked up in surprise and said in surprise, "What? Why is the incomplete primitive continent so lively today? Which great deity has decided to do this on a whim? Damn it, I'd better hurry up and get to work. Extreme joy begets sorrow." With that, the heavenly demon of Huala Heaven's finger that was pointing at Buddha Bodhi's forehead suddenly turned into tens of thousands of tentacles and landed on Buddha Bodhi's golden body. Demonic spots suddenly appeared where the tentacles landed. The spots were like drops of ink falling into clear water, spreading wildly on Buddha Bodhi's golden body. No matter how much Buddhist light flashed, it couldn't stop it. Facing the heavenly demon of Hua Lo Heaven's supreme ability, Buddha Bodhi smiled faintly and put his palms together. Namo Maitreya Buddha, disciple prays to Buddha here and earnestly asks Buddha to raise his hand. If it's the Buddha kingdom, then it's the Buddha kingdom. If it's the heavenly demon, then it's the heavenly demon. Buddha Bodhi's words were like pearls that turned into gold when they landed on the ground. Every time a word fell into the air, it turned into a golden rune that shone with golden light. At the same time, Buddhist lotus seeds emerged from the void and supported the golden runes that came out of Buddha Bodhi's mouth. When the golden runes landed on the Buddhist lotus, they immediately shone with boundless Buddhist light. Then amidst this Buddhist light, the Buddhist lotus bloomed. In the end, 44 Buddhist lotuses surrounded Buddha Bodhi. Behind each Buddhist lotus, countless rivers of faith were faintly born. Murmuring sounds flowed out from these rivers of faith, like flowing music. Moreover, right behind Buddha Bodhi's head, a Buddhist kingdom with a myriad of phenomena had taken shape. In the void, countless Buddhist kingdom phenomena appeared one after another. It seemed that with this verse alone, Buddha Bodhi was about to attain enlightenment. However, something seemed to be missing. The Buddhist kingdom phenomena seemed to be an illusion, a shell. There was no substance at all. The Buddhist kingdom was also like a pancake that could not be completed for a long time. Ha ha ha! After hearing Buddha Bodhi's heartfelt prayer, and seeing the phenomena of the southern gate Maitreya Buddha attaining enlightenment, happiness-melting heavenly demon did not panic at all. On the contrary, he let out a deafening laugh that was both arrogant and sarcastic. He pointed at Buddha Bodhi's head and said loudly, "This is really funny. Damn it, it's as if time has turned back." Back then, Maitreya Buddha Lord also said the same thing, and wanted to take the final step in the same way. However, he still could not escape the fate of being killed by me. This place is surrounded by time turbulence. Thousands of spaces are superimposed without any pattern. Even the heavenly demons of happiness melting heavenly demon cannot find the location of this space. Little monk, use your bald head and think carefully. If the heavenly demons of happiness melting heavenly demon came, I wouldn't have to go through so much trouble to come up with so many schemes. I would have already withdrawn and returned to happiness melting heavenly. Little monk, stop dreaming. Without me, a heavenly demon, how can you Buddhist disciples attain enlightenment? You'd better obediently run into my mouth. Let me use your body to devour Maitreya Buddha's merit. That's good too. Just as Hua Lo Heaven's heavenly demon was laughing out loud, an extremely dim green brilliance suddenly appeared within his huge demonic body. Then this brilliance disappeared without a trace. How is this possible? Happiness melting heavenly demon was shocked. Freedom heavenly demon. Why did you come from freedom heavenly? How did you escape from this space? Did you find a way to break through the time turbulence? What is this place? Why are you here? Just as happiness melting heavenly demon was muttering to himself, 13 loud booms rang out. The 13 divine statues from the Soul Cultivator's ruins in the Spring Forbidden Sea flew out of the devil chi with green light shooting into the sky and landed around happiness melting heavenly demon's body. Then, a series of cryptic green seal scripts burst out of the devil chi, and the 13 divine statues turned into 13 huge green stars that slowly rotated with happiness melting heavenly demon as the center. Soul threads of different waves flew out of each green star, and depending on the angle of rotation, these soul threads fell into the devil chi from all directions. The devil chi didn't weaken under the influence of the soul threads, but it looked a little clearer, as if the 13 stars were purifying the devil chi. At that moment, the soul cultivator Xiaohua, who had been missing all this while, transmitted his voice to all of Xiaohua's clones. Little Mo Ling, I have already lured the happiness-melting heavenly devil into the Shenhua continent. Come and help me. Little monk, Confucian immortal, don't hesitate. Come with I to suppress this heavenly demon. This is all arranged by our true bodies. Taoist Long Mai and the others, seal this entire space. Don't let any of the heavenly demon's clones escape. Soul Cultivator Xiaohua's voice was like a flash of light, waking all of his clones up. How is this possible? Green-robed Xiaohua stood up from a corner of the space and asked in confusion. Didn't we say that we were going to ambush the heaven-devouring beast? Nonsense. The scholarly cultivator, Xiao Hua, became anxious and scolded. Among all of us, you are the most familiar with the Shenhua continent. Before our main bodies recover their minds, why don't you hurry up and help our fellow Taoist soul cultivator? Only when our true bodies awaken from their demonic state will we have a chance to survive. Yes. Green-robed Xiaohua suddenly came to his senses and rushed into Shenhua continent without delay. Almost at the same time, Xiaohua, the devil spirit with the bone spear, flashed through the devil qi and rushed into Shenhua continent. Reverend Confucian immortal Xiaohua looked at Bodhi Buddha and said sadly, "You saw it. Our true bodies did this on purpose, Namo Mithriya Buddha." Bodhi Buddha did not wait for Confucian immortal Xiaohua to finish speaking. He raised his hand and slapped his forehead. A towering Buddhist light descended and suppressed the devil qi of the heavenly demon. Then, he waved his hand, and the exquisite Dayan Pagoda, Mahavairakana Buddhist edict, 10,000 Buddhas painting, and other Buddhist treasures appeared one after another and landed on the restless devil qi and demons. Together with the soul cultivator's shaman artifact, they destroyed the devil qi. Good. Confucian immortal Xiaohua shouted at Longmai Xiaohua. "Fellow Taoist, please take care of it." "Okay." Longmai Xiaohua replied. Then the 9 cauldrons flew out from under the mountain river seal, and spewed 5-colored true qi at the heavenly demon's body. Although the heavenly demon had lost control of its body, there were still many other demons suppressed by the heavenly demon. These demons were frantically trying to break free, so they naturally had to fight against Confucian immortal Xiaohua and Bodhi Buddha. However, Xiaohua's soul cultivator doppelganger, Confucian doppelganger, and Buddhist doppelganger all attacked at the same time. Not only did the soul cultivator doppelganger's shaman tool purify the devils, but the Confucian doppelganger Xiaohua had already reached the scholarly level. His righteous energy surged out of his 5-colored true energy, and the power of life flashed with 5-colored brilliance. Not only did it exterminate the devils without devil bodies, it also rapidly compressed the devil bodies that were no longer under the control of the heavenly devils. Chapter 4259. Similarly, Bodhi, who had fused with Namwu Mithriya Buddha's ancient glory, had reached a whole new level in terms of psyche power and faith power. The boundless Buddhist light swept across the devil's body like sharp flying swords. Many devils howled in agony as they were killed. Even more devil qi was melted, turning into pitch-black liquid that fell into the air. The battle outside the devil's body was extremely exciting, but the battle inside the devil's body was extremely thrilling. When the heavenly devil saw the freedom heavenly devil appear, the ecstasy he felt was indescribable. He had been trapped in this incomplete eldritch continent for many years. He had deliberately planned to destroy the world, so that he could escape from this place surrounded by time turbulence. When he saw the freedom heavenly devil appear, he chased after him without hesitation. He wanted to find the way back to the freedom heavenly devil through the nameless space that the freedom heavenly devil had escaped from. Unfortunately, when he squeezed into that space, he was not greeted by the freedom heavenly devil. Instead, it was the soul cultivator Xiaohua, who was surrounded by green light and filled with the aura of the freedom heavenly devil. When Xiaohua had entered the eldritch continent, the heavenly devil had already seen him. However, Xiaohua had too many doppelgangers. During the battle at Chaotianke, the heavenly devil could not tell which doppelgangers had not appeared. However, when he saw Xiaohua, the heavenly devil's heart trembled. He screamed and immediately wanted to fly out of the Shenhua continent. Just like what Xiaohua had said to Xian, once he entered the Xiao sect, he would be as deep as the ocean. Since the heavenly devil had entered the Shenhua continent, how could he escape so easily? The soul cultivator Xiaohua used his soul technique to purify Xiaohua's mind, and called for the scholarly cultivator Xiaohua to suppress the devil qi of the heavenly devil. At the same time, he waved his hands, and countless soul strands turned into ropes to bind the heavenly devil. Damn it, although Hua Letian didn't understand what exactly had happened, he was very clear that he had definitely fallen into Xiaohua's trap. However, seeing that there was only soul cultivator Xiaohua here, he was also clear that Xiaohua's main body was still in a state of bedevilment. He only needed to escape from this space, and victory would still be within his grasp. Heavenly Demon Hualu cursed in his heart. His body trembled, and he instantly split into billions of doppelgangers. Some of them flew toward the Shenhua continent, some flew toward the starry sky, and some flew into space. Motherfucker, Xiaohua cursed inwardly when he saw how cunning the heavenly demon was. Countless green lights flashed between his eyebrows as he unleashed all sorts of soul techniques to control the area within 10,000 miles. At the same time, he took out his brush and waved it, causing even more green fireflies to spread out and fall on the heavenly demon's avatar. Bang, 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 light explosions rang out as the heavenly demon's avatars were shattered one by one under the power of life. However, as the saying goes, the devil is 10. Seeing that his clone was destroyed, the heavens devil laughed wildly. A hurricane suddenly arose, and the entire space became chaotic. Woo! Just as the soul cultivator Xiaohua was panicking, a demonic roar that was even more arrogant than the heavenly demon's roar rang out. Holding the bone dragon spear, demonic spirit Xiaohua rushed into the Shenhua continent first. The moment demonic spirit Xiaohua landed in space, he roared into the sky without saying a word. As he opened his mouth, he spat out a whirlwind that covered the 10,000 miles of space, controlled by the soul cultivator Xiaohua. Countless heavenly demon doppelgangers were like moths drawn to a flame, obediently falling into his mouth one by one. Damn demon scum. The heavenly demon Hualu was flustered and exasperated. He had lived for so many years, but he had never seen a human who had not set foot in the immortal realm cultivate a demonic doppelganger. Moreover, the strength of the demonic doppelganger seemed to be a bit stronger than the original body. Unfortunately, he only dared to curse in his heart, and did not dare to reveal himself. At this time, the heavenly demon Hualu had already sensed the strangeness of the Shenhua continent. He also understood that although he was more powerful than demonic spirit Xiaohua, in this space, he was definitely no match for demonic spirit Xiaohua. What should I do? Faced with such a hopeless situation, the heavenly demon Hualu truly did not know what to do. However, when he looked at the soul cultivator Xiaohua, the heavenly demon Hualu suddenly had an idea. Many of his doppelgangers charged towards demonic spirit Xiaohua, towards the outside of the space, and towards the unrestrained heavenly demon's aura. Hehe, you're already here and you still want to leave? Demonic spirit Xiaohua laughed heartily. Back then, I also wanted to. Not good. As he spoke, demonic spirit Xiaohua's body trembled, and his demonic body transformed into a demonic formation that enveloped the surrounding area. Not only did it cover 10,000 miles, but it also went beyond 10,000 miles, until it reached tens of thousands of miles. However, it was also at this moment that Xiaohua's devilish body started to tremble rapidly. Various devilish heads that looked completely different from Xiaohua started to appear in various parts of the devilish formation. Moreover, the devilish formation started to collapse one after another. Damn it, how could soul cultivator Xiaohua not know that the heavenly demon Hualu was taking advantage of the situation to corrupt demonic spirit Xiaohua? Although demonic spirit Xiaohua had already become a demon sovereign, he still couldn't resist the heavenly demon Hualu. Go soul cultivator Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He waved the subbrush in his hand and stabbed it into the demonic formation like a sharp sword. However, at the same time that soul cultivator Xiaohua was killing the heavenly devil, his devil formation was also rapidly shrinking. At this time, the soul cultivator Xiaohua's body flashed with a green light, and the unrestrained heavenly devil's aura suddenly weakened. Xiaohua was even more shocked. He already understood the unrestrained heavenly devil's plan. The unrestrained heavenly devil's essence in the space had not been completely refined. If it was used by the unrestrained heavenly devil, wouldn't the unrestrained heavenly devil be able to do whatever it wanted on Shenhua continent? Although he had trapped the heavenly demon Hualu in the space and saved the billions of lives on the Eldritch continent, what about Shenhua continent? There were billions of lives on Shenhua continent right now. Rumble at this critical moment. A shocking thunderstorm swept across the sky above Shenhua continent. On the broken immortal slaying platform, thunder water gushed out like a flood, covering the demonic formation formed by demonic spirit Xiaohua within 100,000 feet of soul cultivator Xiaohua. Above the thunderstorm, the green-robed Xiaohua's figure appeared. Damn it! How dare you show off in front of me? I'll let you know how powerful I am. The green-robed Xiaohua protected demonic spirit Xiaohua with the thunderstorm as he cursed. Then he struck out several spells to seal several important places in the space. He then raised his hand and pointed again. Buzz! The sun star in the sky also emitted sun true fire, which poured into the thunderstorm. The heavenly demon Hua Li's wails were incessant in the thunderstorm. Few seeing the green-robed Xiaohua come to help. Soul Cultivator Xiaohua let out a long breath. He thought that he and demonic spirit Xiaohua could deal with the heavenly demon Hualu easily, but he didn't expect the heavenly demon Hualu to be even more difficult to deal with than the freedom heavenly demon. Go to hell. Soul Cultivator Xiaohua was naturally furious now that he had nothing to worry about. He activated his soul spell to kill the heavenly demon Huali's doppelgangers. At this time, demonic spirit Xiaohua also broke free from the heavenly demon Hualu and used the power of the thunderstorm to counterattack the heavenly demon Hualu. After witnessing the heavenly demon Huali's abilities, the green-robed Xiaohua didn't dare to be distracted. He released his divine sense to cover the entire space and closely monitored the situation. After an hour, more than 70% of the heavenly demon Huali's doppelgangers were killed, and the remaining ones were struggling at death's door. Suddenly, the green-robed Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and hurriedly waved his hands. Layers of seals appeared in midair, and within the seals, the originally formless heavenly demon Huali's doppelgangers froze. Damn it! Even the green-robed Xiaohua felt a headache coming on. He couldn't help but complain. Why is this heavenly demon Huali so difficult to deal with? Not good. Seeing that a few of the heavenly demon Huali's doppelgangers were about to escape from the space, the green-robed Xiaohua turned pale with fright. This was Xiaohua's biggest secret, and also the secret that all his doppelgangers relied on to grow. If the heavenly demon Hualu escaped, this secret would be exposed to the public. At this time, a cold voice like that of a god appeared. The entire space was suddenly completely sealed. Jade Archive Xiaohua's figure appeared beside the green-robed Xiaohua. Good boy. The green-robed Xiaohua saw Jade Archive Xiaohua and immediately beamed with joy. He said, "Fellow Taoist, you are finally here. I will leave this place to you. Fellow Taoists, I will have to trouble you." Jade Archive Xiaohua cupped his hands and bowed. However, his aura was different from before. It was as if he had cut off something, but also as if he had sublimated something. His every movement faintly had the aura of controlling the entire space. This aura was comparable to the heaven and earth, and also had the tendency to surpass inner sage and outer monarch. The green-robed Xiaohua looked envious, but at this time he did not dare to say anything. He casually cupped his hands and returned the greeting before retreating to the side. Jade Archive Xiaohua looked around. He looked at the heavenly demon Huali's doppelgangers in the lightning, and then looked outside the lightning, at the place where the green-robed Xiaohua had not paid attention to before. Seeing that Jade Archive Xiaohua was looking at another place, the green-robed Xiaohua's heart thumped loudly. An extremely bad feeling arose in his heart, because that place was where the Shenhua continent was located. All the Fortune Gate's disciples and the flashy mundane world were also there. What is Buddha? What is devil? Jade Archive Xiaohua said indifferently. What is light? What is darkness? Where there is light, there is darkness, and where there is darkness, there is light. There is no absolute light, and there is no absolute darkness. Therefore, if there is Buddha, there is devil, and if there is devil, there is Buddha. There is no Buddha that has been completely erased, and there is no devil that has been completely exterminated. Since there is Buddha on the Shenhua continent, then it is inevitable that there will be devil. Blindly avoiding the distinction between Buddha and devil will only cause the entire Shenhua continent to collapse. Since all the heavenly demons have come to cause trouble, then all of you can stay here. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.